Chapter 1180. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was shrouded with divine lights of 7 colors. It was bedazzling, and could not be looked at directly. The Dharma characteristic was corporeal, and its body was as described in the Glass Heart Sutra. It was like glass, clear from inside out and flawless, emitting a terrifying aura. The Kacharati Tao fire was still burning without extinguishing. However, the rainbow glass body roared and burst forth with divine light. Waving its hands, it channeled the power of heaven and earth, and suppressed the Kacharati Tao fire instantly. Boom! The rainbow glass body raised its leg and stomped down heavily, crushing the Kacharati Tao fire beneath its feet, and extinguishing it instantly. In the face of the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body, even the patriarch of the upper sex and aristocratic family leaders present would have to bow down, let alone Su Zimo. An 80 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was probably something that only the titular disciples of the super sex could suppress. Seems like this battle is over. Fufu, it's not that easy to cross major cultivation realms. Furthermore, he's challenging a glass palace cultivator. Araki Takashi is going to pay the price for his arrogance. When they saw that, everyone had a myriad of expressions. Some lamented, some felt pity, some sneered, and some were worried. First, Xiaoning was anxious and worried, but there was nothing she could do. The old immortal crane frowned as well and murmured, "Zimo is going to lose." Oh, he managed to cultivate an 80 feet tall rainbow glass body. The white-robed woman raised her brow, and her lips curled into a perfect arc as she said mockingly, "Little Fox, that young Master Su of yours is going to be in trouble." Little Fox was so anxious that she was about to cry. "God is true, Jade, you'll definitely help, right? Why should I help him?" The white-robed woman pursed her lips in disdain. "Your Highness, please save him." Little Fox grabbed the collar of the white-robed woman's chest and cried, "I'll leave with you from now on, all right? I don't want anything to happen to my young master." He saw something he shouldn't have. What's the big deal about suffering a little? The white-robed woman harumphed, still brooding over what happened in the cave. However, the little fox was completely confused. She didn't know what he meant by shouldn't. "Ha ha ha ha, Araki Takashi, what other tricks do you have?" Tao Lord Xianyu laughed maniacally, and his rainbow glass body strode forward. Clenching his fist, he punched Su Zimo viciously. This punch was no less powerful than a meteorite crashing down. Its momentum was terrifying. The entire void was trembling. Ba! Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit as he formed the motionless fundamental mudra with his hands. He looked solemn and dignified as rays of golden light radiated from his body. It was as though his feet had taken root, and he had become a Buddha. Boom! The fist of the rainbow-glazed body slammed heavily into Su Zimo's body. Compared to this huge fist, Su Zimo was like a tiny sandstone that was ruthlessly smashed into the ground. Even the immovable fundamental seal could not block the power of the cosmic form. In the face of this terrifying power, the roots that grew under his feet were all broken. Boom! 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 The tremendous power did not stop. Su Zimo's figure rolled backward in the mud, creating a human-shaped ravine that was more than 100 feet long on the ground in a shocking manner. Between heaven and earth, there was only silence. Even the wind was gone. Every cultivator could not conceal the shock on their faces. This was the burst power of the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body. Who could defend against it? Even the Dharma Daojun would have been reduced to a mist of blood, let alone avoid reversion. Su Zimo sprawled motionlessly in the mud. He should be dead, right? Even Tao Lord Dermic weapons would be shattered by such terrifying power, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Wait. Look, the Creation Lotus platform is still fighting against the fire-blocking basket. He's not dead yet, and can still split his attention to control his dermic weapon? The cultivators were dumbfounded with disbelief in their eyes. He probably won't be able to last long even if he's not dead. That's right. The difference in strength between the two of them is way too great. They're on completely different levels. Everyone shook their heads. The old immortal crane was anxious. Although she was a Dharma characteristic expert, she could not defend against the 80 feet tall rainbow glass body. She would probably be severely injured with a single strike. Furthermore, The spectators were the patriarch of the various upper sects and aristocratic families. She would be targeted if she made any strange moves. First doesn't seem to be doing too well. Ching Ching whispered. What should we do? Ling Hu looked at Monkey and whispered. Brother Monkey, tell me about it. Kill. Monkey gripped Imminent in his hands tightly with a scarlet glint in his eyes as he grit his teeth. We can't care about that anymore. We can't just watch First get beaten to death. In the current situation, a single move would affect everything. The moment they attacked, they would definitely attract the attacks of the various upper sects and aristocratic families. Even if there were no other sects or factions, the rainbow glass body alone was enough to deal with them. You guys retreat first. Night Spirit had a calm expression, and a resolute look flashed through his eyes as he said in a deep voice, I'll save first. Night Spirit was already prepared. Even if he had to expose his true form, he had to rescue Su Zimo from the suppression of Dao Lord Xian Yu's Dharma characteristic. After he reverted to his true form, his combat strength and speed increased exponentially, and he had at least a 30% chance of escaping with Su Zimo. God is true, Jade, aren't you going to attack? Little Fox was no longer pleading. Instead, she glared at the white-robed woman angrily. Even without Little Fox's urging, the white-robed woman was prepared to attack. She merely wanted Su Zimo to suffer a little. She had not expected him to die here. Just as she was about to take a step, she frowned slightly and exclaimed softly when her gaze landed on Su Zimo, who was sprawled in the ruins. Immediately after, she seemed to have sensed something and her eyes shone brightly. Could it be? The white-robed woman murmured softly. Little Fox asked, God is true, Jade, why aren't you moving again? Let's wait and see. The white-robed woman shook her head. On the battlefield, Dao Lord Xian Yu also noticed the two dermic weapons that were still fighting in midair, and could not help but sneer. Araki Takashi, let's see how long you can last against my rainbow glass body. Cough, cough, cough. Right then, Su Zimo moved and crawled up slowly from the ruins. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, and looked a little pale. Suddenly Su Zimo smiled. The crowd was stunned. They could not understand how Su Zimo could still smile under such circumstances. Is the seven-colored glazed body your final trump card? Su Zimo asked faintly. What are you trying to say? Dao Lord Xian Yu suddenly felt flustered and hollered. Su Zimo's gaze was sinister as a terrifying aura emanated from his body. He said slowly, what I want to say is, I have something like that too. Boom. A pitch-black phantom burst forth from Su Zimo's body and soared into the skies. Fiend chi coiled around it and rose continuously. Psst! The crowd was shocked and gasped with widened eyes. Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic. This scene had completely exceeded their understanding. How was that possible? How could a void reversion condense a Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic? 10 feet, 20 feet, 50 feet. After 50 feet, the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was still rising without stopping. The cultivators looked up with agape mouths. Could it be 60 feet? 70 feet? 80 feet? Another 80 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic descended. Chapter 1181. If Dao Lord Xian Yu's rainbow glass body was said to be shocking to everyone, the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic condensed by Su Zimo gave everyone an incomparable shock. This was a scene that no one expected. It was also beyond everyone's understanding. How could a void reversion condense a Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic? What was even more frightening was that the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was 80 feet tall, and was comparable to Dao Lord Xian Yu's rainbow glass body. The two 80 feet tall Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics faced each other in the ruins with torrential auras that looked down on the world. How is that possible? Even the sect master of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult was tongue-tied, and could not speak clearly with a shocked expression. His Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was only 69 feet tall, and not even 70 feet tall. The Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic of the void reversion before him was already 80 feet tall. That's way too scary. The Patriarch of Stellar Luna sect said in a deep voice. This lad is only at the void reversion realm. If he enters the Dharma characteristic realm, how much can his Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic grow? Normally speaking, Cultivators would be able to condense heaven and earth Dharma characteristics upon entering the Dharma characteristic realm. However, the height of the Dharma characteristic was not its final height. As a cultivator's cultivation realm increased, their Dharma characteristics would continue to grow. Of course, the higher the initial Dharma characteristic, the greater its potential, and the stronger it would be when it reached its peak. 90 feet supreme. The patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect's heart trembled as he whispered. This lad managed to condense an 80 feet Dharma characteristic at the Void Reversion realm. This Dharma characteristic will definitely be able to grow into a supreme Dharma characteristic. A 90 feet Dharma characteristic was known as a supreme Dharma characteristic. All these years, the patriarch of the upper sects and aristocratic family leaders of the North region had not seen anyone who could condense a supreme Dharma characteristic. In their opinion, supreme Dharma characteristics were merely legends. It could only appear in the ancient era, where many emperors rose and monster incarnates reigned. However, at that moment, no one doubted the patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect's speculation. The patriarch believed that if Araki Takashi was allowed to continue growing, he would definitely be able to achieve the Paragon Dharma characteristic when he reached the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. In fact, the Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was only comprehended by Su Zimo after he reached the perfected Void Return stage. The so-called Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic was the fusion of all Dharma into one. By using the essence spirit to communicate with the heaven and earth, one could summarize the essence of the Tao and condense the strongest technique of Dharma arts. Normally, only those who had reached the Dharma characteristic realm could condense a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. There were two reasons. Firstly, the strength of his primordial spirit. His primordial spirit was not strong enough. Before he could form his heaven and earth Dharma form, his primordial spirit had already collapsed. Although Su Zimo was only at the return to void stage, his primordial spirit was more powerful than most Dharma Daojuans. This had no effect on him. Secondly, only by entering the Dharma plane would one be able to better understand and communicate with the heavens and the earth. Then, one could summarize all the mantras they had learned and combine all the mantras to form a Dharma plane. That was something that Su Zimo could not fulfill as well. However, by chance, in the Tao inheritance ground, his memories were fused with the insights of a half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sex. That half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sex had already condensed a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic a long time ago. He had already experienced the combination of all mantras, and there was no need for Su Zimo to comprehend and deduce. Therefore, his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was condensed based on the memories of that half-martial ancestor of the Fiend sex. Naturally, this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was the condensation of the essence of the Fiend sex Tao techniques. The Dharma characteristic of the Fiend sex was 80 feet tall and wore black armor. It was shrouded in Fiend Chi and wielded a gigantic pitch-black scythe with a chilling aura. What Dharma characteristic is that? To think that it can go against the rainbow glass body. What a strong Fiend Chi. To think that Araki Takashi's cultivation of the Fiend Tao would be so high. He's probably comparable to titular disciples of the Fiend sects. None of the cultivators present could recognize the origin of that Dharma characteristic. Only the white-robed woman's expression changed as she murmured softly, "It's the lost heavenly Fiend Dharma body. Furthermore, it's a heavenly Fiend Dharma body that can condense the heavenly Fiend scythe. Is the heavenly Fiend Dharma body very powerful?" Little Fox could not help but ask. The white-robed woman said, "That's one of the strongest heaven and earth Dharma characteristics of the Fiend sections. I'm afraid the rainbow glass body doesn't have a high chance of winning against the heavenly Fiend Dharma body." You. On the battlefield, Tao Lord Xianyu looked at the heavenly Fiend Dharma body opposite him with a hint of panic in his eyes. Suddenly, he realized that the situation was out of his control. "Xianyu, hand over your life," Su Zimo said slowly. "Even a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic won't be able to save you. Kill." Almost at the same time, the two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics moved. That single move caused the weather to change and the ground to quake. One could imagine the scene of two 80 feet tall, godlike Dharma Laksana 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 Laksana. Bang! 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 The two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics clashed repeatedly. The heavenly fiend Dharma body released a pitch-black fiend chi that corroded the divine light of the rainbow glass body with sizzling sounds. Of course, the most terrifying thing about the heavenly fiend Dharma body was the heavenly fiend scythe in his hands. The pitch-black scythe was incomparably sharp and could slice the void into two with a casual swing. In the blink of an eye, the bodies of the two Dharma characteristics were riddled with holes and covered in injuries. They were fighting to their limits. Finally, the rainbow glass body was the first to give in and turned into streams of dharmic powers that dissipated into the world. Of course, the remaining heavenly fiend Dharma body was also tattered and could dissipate at any moment. Even so, the heavenly fiend Dharma body was still under Su Zimo's control and slashed down at Tao Lord Xianyu with its tattered scythe. If you punch me, you'll receive a slash from me. Su Zimo glared with widened eyes and hollered. Ooh! The scythe tore through the void with a black flash and arrived instantly. It was the same as what Su Zimo was experiencing just now. He could not dodge the punch of the rainbow glass body. Tao Lord Xian, you could not dodge the scythe of the heavenly fiend Dharma body either. He could only take out a shield and circulate his blood chi to its limits, raising the shield to defend against the heavenly fiend scythe. Boom! There was a loud bang. The shield exploded instantly. The flesh on Tao Lord Xianyu's arm peeled off as well, and was corroded by the fiend chi, revealing white bones. Ah! Tao Lord Xianyu's face was pale as he shrieked. His rainbow glass true body was severely injured, and his left arm was mostly crippled. It was almost severed by the heavenly fiend scythe. Of course, after this head-on clash, the heavenly fiend Dharma body could not hold on any longer and turned into rumbling fiend chi that condensed without dissipating. Su Zimo opened his mouth and sucked. Swoosh! The fiend chi swept in and was devoured by him in the blink of an eye, replenishing his stamina and blood chi. Su Zimo would not give Tao Lord Xianyu any chance and slapped his storage bag, bringing out the mystic magnet mountain once more. Smash! Su Zimo pointed forward. The mystic magnet mountain expanded with the wind and turned into a gigantic mountain, smashing down towards Tao Lord Xianyu. A huge shadow loomed over. The range of the mystic magnet mountain was way too large. Even if Tao Lord Xianyu wanted to dodge, he could not. His left arm was crippled, and he could only raise his right arm. Ignoring his injuries, he channeled his blood chi once more and pushed upwards, lifting the mystic magnet mountain with one hand. Exclamation point! Tao Lord Xianyu spat out a mouthful of blood upon contact. With his rainbow glass true body destroyed, he could no longer withstand the power of the mystic magnet mountain with a single arm. Creak! 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 His skeleton let out a series of sounds under the suppression of the mystic magnet mountain and could not withstand the burden. His organs were shifting and blood seeped out. Chapter 1182. Apart from emitting the power of magnetism, the mystic magnet mountain could control and absorb many dharmic weapons made of metal. Its weight was extremely terrifying as well. Furthermore, as his cultivation increased, the height and weight of the mystic magnet mountain would increase. Right now, the mystic magnet mountain was more than 100 feet tall, and was more than twice as tall as the heaven and earth dharma characteristics they cultivated. It was obvious how terrifying the pressure of such a massive mountain was when it pressed down on a single cultivator. If Tao Lord Xianyu was in his peak condition, the pressure of the mystic magnet mountain would naturally not be able to threaten him. However, he had just been severely injured by the heavenly fiend scythe, and his entire left arm was crippled. His blood chi was weak, and when the mystic magnet mountain pressed down, he was almost smashed into meat paste. Tao Lord Xianyu's face flushed purple as he supported the mystic magnet mountain with one arm, and his entire body trembled. He knew very well that he was at the end of his tether, and his life was hanging by a thread. If he could not survive, his 1,000 years of cultivation would be destroyed. Suddenly, streams of rainbow glass divine light appeared on Tao Lord Xianyu's left arm. His remaining flesh and blood began to crystallize like jade. With that, the blood chi that was initially flowing stopped instantly. Rise! Tao Lord Xianyu released all his strength and his blood qi surged, pushing the mystic magnet mountain upwards and ripping it apart. The mystic magnet mountain was overturned and rolled to the side. Tao Lord Xianyu felt his entire body lighten as he panted heavily. However, there was a strong stench of blood in his aura. It was a sign that his organs were severely injured. I can't fight anymore. That thought flashed through Tao Lord Xianyu's mind, and he was about to turn and escape. However, his vision blurred and a green light flashed, smashing towards his face. Instinctively, Tao Lord Xianyu raised his right arm to defend. Given his physique, he could withstand even Su Zimo's Khanate Dao being dermic weapon. Bang! His right arm collided with the green light and let out a dull thud. Crack! 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 Immediately after, a series of bone cracking sounds could be heard from Tao Lord Xianyu's right arm. A tearing pain surged into Tao Lord Xianyu's heart, and he let out a hysterical scream with a pained expression. His right arm was actually shattered by this green light. This green light was not a Khanate Taoist weapon. Instead, it was the Creation Lotus Throne, which was comparable to a Khanate Tao Lord dermic artifact. Tao Lord Xianyu was severely injured consecutively and could no longer divert his attention to control the fire-blocking basket. The Creation Lotus platform seized the opportunity to break through the restraints of the fire-blocking basket and dealt another blow to Tao Lord Xianyu under Su Zimo's control. Even the fire-blocking dome had fallen into Su Zimo's hands. At that moment, Tao Lord Xianyu's arms were crippled and his blood qi was declining. His essence spirit was weak, and he no longer had any strength to resist. He had lost. Tao Lord Xianyu had lost. Everyone had complicated expressions on their faces. They really didn't expect that the battle would reach such a level and end in such a way. Monkey and the others finally relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief. The little fox broke into a smile through her tears and clapped in high spirits. I knew that young master would definitely win. God is true, Jade, I won too. The little fox gave the woman in white a smug look and waved its little paw. The woman in white smiled gently and did not retort this time round. It was also beyond her expectations that Su Zimo could win this battle. The scene of Su Zimo condensing his heaven and earth dharma characteristic also dealt a huge blow to her mind. Xianyu, more than 100 years ago, when you snatched this dermic weapon from the little fox, did you think that this day would come? When you gave the order to massacre the living beings of the 13 cities of Yin country, did you ever think that you would one day have to pay with your blood and die with the countless souls beneath your ruins? Su Zimo's expression was cold as he held the fire-blocking basket in his left hand, and the Qinglian of creation circled around him as he walked towards Tao Lord Xianyu slowly. Fufu. Xianyu laughed and panted. Mortals are like ants to us. So what if we kill them? What's the problem? To think that you still can't see through the logic behind this even after cultivating to this extent, and can't sever your mortal ties. You're wrong. Right then Xiaoning stood out and hollered. In the primordial era, the human race was weak and enslaved by the 10,000 races with lives as worthless as grass. Later on, the human race rose up and the emperors rose together. Under the lead of the human emperor, they fought against the primordial 9 races and the 10,000 races to escape that tragic fate and usher in a golden era. In that era, many seniors and sages left behind their inheritances for us to protect the living beings of the world and the weak. However, as the successor of an immortal sect, you treat mortals like ants and slaughter them at will. What's the difference between your actions and the primordial 9 races of the past? Is this how the legacy of the glazed tile palace works? His words were righteous and soul-stirring. Many cultivators present lowered their heads in shame. That was the most mocking thing. The experts of the past chased away the primordial 9 races. However, the descendants of those experts replaced the primordial 9 races and became even more terrifying. Be it the era ruled by the primordial 9 races, or the era ruled by cultivators later on, the most miserable ones with lives as worthless as ants were the weak mortals of the world. In the current world as mortals, how could they settle down without immense strength? Cultivators could threaten them. Demon beasts could threaten them. In fact, It was even possible that countless mortals would be embroiled in a battle between cultivators and would be helpless. With a single thought, Dao Lord Xianyu massacred living beings in 13 cities of Yin country. There was more than one such incident. How many people died in the calamity of the witchcraft Gu a year ago? This is Tianhuang mainland where the strong prey on the weak. There are countless mortals in the world. How many people can you save, Araki Takashi? Dao Lord Xianyu glared at Su Zimo and sneered. I've never thought of saving anyone. Su Zimo shook his head. I want to establish a Dao and impart martial arts to all living beings, because I want to give all living beings a chance to control their own fates. I want everyone in the world to be able to cultivate and become immortals. Ha 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 ha. Xianyu roared in laughter, as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world. That's impossible. Araki Takashi, you're truly delusional. In the ancient era, there were many sages of the human race who couldn't do something as such. What right do you have? Future generations will know whether I can do it or not, but you won't have the chance to see it. Su Zimo did not say anything else and said indifferently, hand over your life. Boom. Su Zimo strode forward and slammed the Creation Lotus platform fiercely towards Dao Lord Xianyu's head with his right hand. Shh. A divine light flashed and escaped from Dao Lord Xianyu's body with a flustered expression. It was Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit. Kill. Su Zimo hollered. Thunderclap kill exploded. After a series of battles and being severely injured, Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit was already extremely weak. Now that he was struck by the sound domain technique, Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit shuddered and almost dissipated on the spot. The next moment, the Creation Lotus platform enveloped him. Poof! The Lotus platform descended and turned Dao Lord Xianyu's essence spirit into dregs. Dao Lord Xianyu was dead. Chapter 1183. The grudge that had lasted for more than 100 years was finally resolved today. Between heaven and earth, there was only silence. The cultivators looked at the figure standing on the ruins with conflicted expressions. Araki Takashi is establishing a Dao and imparting martial arts to all living beings. How bold! Suddenly, the Patriarch of Stellar Luna sect shook his head and waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. From this day forth, the grudge between Stellar Luna sect and you shall be written off. Many paragons of Stellar Luna sect died in the hands of Su Zimo at the North Region Dao meet in the Great Qian ruins. But now, the words of the Patriarch of the 10 upper sects of the North Region carried immense weight. I've heard of Araki Takashi's name. Now that I've met you, I know that the rumors are true. The Valley Master of Blaze Columbus Valley stood out as well and declared. Dao being Araki Takashi, the grudge between you and Blaze Columbus Valley shall be written off as well. At the end of the day, there was no deep feud between those sects and Su Zimo, be it the Great Qian ruins, or the battle at the North Region Dao meet. Su Zimo could not be blamed. The Patriarch of Heaven Motion sect sighed gently and said in a deep voice, Dao being Araki Takashi, Heaven Motion sect will not find trouble with you in the future as well. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the 10 upper sects of the North Region's Patriarch stood out and expressed that they would no longer be on bad terms with Araki Takashi. Araki Takashi, our Morong family will no longer pursue past grudges as well. The Patriarch of the Morong family was a beautiful middle-aged woman. Pausing for a moment, she continued, if you can truly establish the Wu Dao and allow all living beings in the world to cultivate, I'll visit personally to congratulate you. One of the 4 cultivation families stood out as well. Su Zimo nodded gently to the Patriarch and Patriarch in response. As for the other aristocratic families, none of them said anything. In the North Region, the Ouyang and Duanmu aristocratic families were second only to Glass Palace, and were even above many of the upper sects. Their Patriarch had a noble status, and had been famous for a long time. Naturally, he would not take the initiative to reconcile with avoid reversion. As for the other factions, although some of the Patriarch wanted to reconcile with them, they could only remain silent for fear of losing face. However, there were still some Patriarch who had other thoughts. The Patriarch of the Dragon Tiger sect was expressionless. The situation of the Dragon Tiger sect was different from the other upper sections. That was because the Dragon Tiger sect had participated in the witchcraft calamity a year ago. Meanwhile, more than half of the cultivators of the Dragon Tiger sect had gone to attack the Misty Peak, only to be killed by Su Zimo. The patriarch of the Dragon Tiger sect knew very well that Su Zimo would definitely not let this matter rest. And he too could not swallow this resentment. Just as Elderly said, Araki Takeshi must die. Otherwise, once Araki Takeshi entered the Dharma characteristic realm, not many people would be able to restrain him. At that time, the one to suffer would be Dragon Tiger sect. Elderly had already joined forces with 5 conjoint body mighty figures of Dark Ghost sect, 7 Kills sect, Blood Mist sect, Mystic Firmament Divine Cult and Yuan clan. A total of 6 conjoint body mighty figures. By now, Elder Li and the others should have arrived. The patriarch of the Dragon Tiger sect believed that nothing would go wrong if 6 conjoint body mighty figures joined forces to kill avoid reversion. The Palace Lord of Dragon Tiger sect exchanged glances with the Master of Blood Mist sect and the others and nodded subtly. In that short period of time, many cultivators had already left. The patriarch of the Dragon Tiger sect and the others did not stay on the spot either, and left with the crowd. In less than an hour, most of the cultivators near the old capital of Yin country had left. Only some of Su Zimo's friends and acquaintances remained. Monkey and the others, Nian Qi, Momo, Xiaoning, Ji Yaoxue, the old immortal crane, and the others gathered together and chatted casually with relaxed expressions. When Xiaoning found out that Momo, the adorable boy, was transformed from the peach blossom tree in Su Zimo's courtyard, she clicked her tongue in wonder. Among everyone, Su Zimo was the only one who frowned slightly, as though he had something on his mind. Nobody thought too much about it. They merely thought that Su Zimo was feeling conflicted, because he had killed a great enemy personally to resolve this feud. Young master. Right then, a soft call sounded from the crowd. Monkey and the others were stunned for a moment before exchanging glances with joy. Little Fox. They had been with Little Fox for more than 100 years, and were naturally extremely familiar with her voice. The crowd parted. A fiery red fox ran towards Su Zimo, wagging its furry tail with an excited expression and eyes filled with the joy of a reunion. Su Zimo tossed aside his distracting thoughts and smiled, opening his arms slightly. Leaping into his embrace, Little Fox stuck her head out and rubbed it against his warm chest. Smelling that familiar scent, Little Fox felt incomparably blissful. Su Zimo rubbed Little Fox's head, and his heart skipped a beat. As though he sensed something, he looked forward instinctively. Not far away, a white-robed woman stood. She was flawlessly beautiful and otherworldly, like a fairy that had descended into the mortal world. The women present, Qing Qing, Cacao and Xiaoning, were all rare beauties with their own unique traits. As the Empress of Great Zhou, Ji Yaoxue was even more elegant and beautiful, with an outstanding temperament that was bedazzling. However, after the white-robed woman appeared, the radiance of those women seemed to have dimmed instantly. Even Monkey, Ling Hu and the other demon beasts were stunned when they saw the white-robed woman, let alone Su Zimo. Princess Yufei? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he blurted out instinctively. The moment he said that, he realized that it was inappropriate. Princess Yufei was the title given to her by the Emperor of Great Qian. It was truly disrespectful for him to address her as Princess Yufei directly, and his status did not match either. Indeed, the white-robed woman frowned slightly when she heard that, seemingly displeased. Young master, her Dao title is True Jade. Little Fox whispered. Princess Yufei is her former title and she no longer uses it. Su Zimo nodded. Greetings, Senior True Jade. Su Zimo bowed hurriedly and cupped his fists. He looked at the white-robed woman, and could not help but recall the stunning figure he saw in the cave in a daze. He could not be blamed. Even Goddess True Jade's appearance was unforgettable, let alone that flawless body of hers. Just as Su Zimo was in a daze, he suddenly felt a chill. He could not help but shudder. Not far away, Goddess True Jade was glaring at him fiercely and asking coldly, "What were you thinking about earlier on?" Nothing. Su Zimo looked embarrassed and guilty. If Goddess True Jade was truly enraged and wanted to dig out his eyes, he would truly not be able to resist. Young master, what's wrong with you just now? Why are you so worried after the battle? Although they had been separated for 100 years, Little Fox could tell at a glance that something was amiss with Su Zimo's condition. For some reason, I feel uneasy, Su Zimo said with a frown. This was a whim and definitely not for no reason. Su Zimo glanced at Goddess True Jade before shaking his head. Although Goddess True Jade had spoken harshly, Su Zimo could not sense any killing intent from her. However, where was the source of this uneasiness? What went wrong? Suddenly Su Zimo asked. Did anything major happen in the North region while I was in seclusion? Nothing much. Nianqi shook his head. Many sects and factions are waiting to see the battle between you and Dao Lord Xianyu. Pausing for a moment, Nianqi thought for a moment and continued. However, there's something unusual. The Grand Elders of Dragon Tiger Sect, Blood Mist Sect, and some other upper sects suddenly announced that they were leaving the sect. Su Zimo pondered for a moment, and his expression changed. Chapter 1184. Something's not right. Su Zimo shook his head with a grim expression. What's wrong? Everyone stopped chatting and asked when they saw Su Zimo's terrible expression. If I'm not wrong, the Grand Elders of Dragon Tiger Sect and Blood Mist Sect are all conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo said slowly. However, it's way too strange for those conjoint body mighty figures to announce their departure at this point in time. I'm afraid they have other motives. Young master, you mean that they'll attack you? Nianqi's heart sank, and he realized that something was amiss. Ji Yaoshua frowned. 10 years ago, the conjoint body mighty figures of the super sects charged into the Dragon Burial Valley, but returned in defeat. Zimo, the Mahayana Patriarch behind you, has already warned the cultivation world that the conjoint body mighty figures of Dragon Tiger Sect will attack you. Aren't you afraid of the Patriarch's wrath and implicating the sect? At that point, Ji Yaoshua's expression changed as though she realized something. Is it because those conjoint body mighty figures are worried about implicating the sect that they chose to leave the sect at this point in time? Su Zimo remained silent. The sense of danger was getting closer and closer, and even made him feel suffocated. They're here, suddenly Su Zimo said. The moment he said that, 6 figures appeared in midair around him. Every single one of them emitted a shuddering aura. That aura had already far surpassed the Dharma characteristic realm. 5 old men and a middle-aged man. 6 conjoint body mighty figures. Spirit consciousness barrier spatial seal. The 6 conjoint body mighty figures spoke at the same time and hollered. Waving their hands, visible ripples appeared in the void. Immediately after, Su Zimo and the others felt a strange feeling. It was as though the space they were in was completely isolated from the outside world. The entire old capital of Yen country seemed to have been sealed, and even the heaven and earth powers could not be sensed. Su Zimo's gaze was cold. The old immortal crane and the others had terrible expressions and were anxious. Among everyone, the only one who was calm and composed the entire time was Goddess True Jade. In midair, after making those arrangements, the gazes of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures landed on Su Zimo. Araki Takashi, you're very smart. You've already guessed why we left the sect. Among them, an old man stepped forward and smiled. He shook his head and said, Unfortunately, you realized it too late. Who are you? Su Zimo asked coldly. There's no harm in telling you. You're going to die anyway. The elder smiled and said, I am the supreme elder of the Dragon Tiger Sect. My Taoist name is Guling. Dragon Tiger Sect, very good. Su Zimo nodded. The other elder's face was withered and yellow like a sickly person. He exuded a gloomy aura and said, I am Elder Heisia of the Een Ghost Sect. The third old man was filled with a murderous aura. He simply said, 7 Kills Sect Kanyang. I am Blood Mist Sect's Malice Fiend Hihi. Araki Takashi, I heard that your combat strength did not decrease after you reconstructed your body. I want to taste your blood and see what it tastes like. The 4th old man stuck out his scarlet tongue and licked his lips. I am Yuan Xiong. Needless to say, the 5th old man already knew his background. Pausing for a moment, Yuan Xiong looked at Su Zimo and said indifferently, Yuan Wushuang is my grandson. Yuan Xiong looked calm when he said that. However, everyone could sense the surging killing intent behind that calmness. The sixth conjoint body mighty figure was a middle-aged man. He smiled sinisterly and looked insolent and frivolous. Mystic Firmament Divine Cult Lang Yu. You can also call me Exalted Master Lang Yu. 5 of the 10 upper sects of the North region were here. One of the 4 gentry clans was here. Even in the ancient era, nothing like this had ever happened before for the sake of killing a single void reversion. 6 conjoint body mighty figures. I'm truly flattered. Su Zimo laughed self-deprecatingly. Are you stalling for time? Elder Bone Spirit of Dragon Tiger Sex suddenly asked before shaking his head. Araki Takashi, give up. Since we've decided to join forces to kill you, we won't allow any accidents to happen. Oh. Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. Elder Bone Spirit said proudly. With the spirit consciousness barrier, some of your communication talismans can't be sent out. We've already joined forces to seal the space here. Even if you have a treasure like the teleportation talisman, you won't be able to leave. This time round, they were fully prepared. The reason why Su Zimo was able to escape alive in the Dao inheritance ground was because of the major transference talisman, apart from treasures such as the creation Qinglian. Therefore, the first thing the 6 of them did after appearing was to seal the space here. It was difficult to even release the major transference talisman. Despicable, Nianqi said coldly. As conjoint body experts, you guys actually joined forces to kill a void reversion? Have you no shame? Little Fox could not hold it in and said angrily. Fufu, you're too childish. Elder Bone Spirit sneered. Yuan Xiong said. You crippled my grandson, and it's only right for me to take revenge. Araki Takashi, your mistake is to provoke the Yuan clan. Elder Malice Fiend of Blood Mist Sect grinned. Upper sects like us have a legacy of more than 10,000 years. What kind of foundation do we have? Do you think you can provoke and contend against me? Since you want to challenge us, you should be prepared to be destroyed at any moment. Ji Yaoshua took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Seniors, Zimo has a Mahayana patriarch backing him. Are you guys really not afraid of the patriarch's wrath for harming his life? We don't have much lifespan left, Elder Bone Spirit said. Even without this, we can only live for a few hundred years at most. TSK, it's worth it to exchange our old lives for the life of the number 1 monster incarnate of history. Elder Heisia of Dark Ghost Sect laughed sinisterly. Of course, apart from the 5 old men, Exalted Master Lang Yu of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult was at his peak among the 6 conjoint body mighty figures. Exalted Master Lang Yu was indifferent and smiled. I'll escape far away after killing Araki Takashi. I might be in the Middle Continent or West region. Hehe. Even if a Mahayana patriarch is extremely strong, he might not be able to find me as long as I hide carefully. I heard that the patriarch at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley doesn't have many years left to live. At most, I'll wait until he dies before coming out of seclusion again. Exalted Master Lang Yu had an excited expression. Who knows? I might even be able to make use of the pressure of being hunted down by a Mahayana patriarch to break through and enter the Mahayana realm. The 5 old men had already seen through life and death. However, Exalted Master Lang Yu was clearly a lunatic who was fearless and did not care about the consequences. There was truly nothing to worry about when the 6 conjoint body mighty figures gathered together. What should we do? Should we kill our way out? How? Even a single conjoint body mighty figure is enough to kill us, let alone 6. We can't just wait for death here. Monkey and the others frowned and communicated with their spirit consciousnesses secretly. Su Zimo did not participate. He glanced at Goddess True Jade, who was not far away without batting an eyelid. At that moment, Goddess True Jade had an indifferent expression, neither frustrated nor anxious. Su Zimo felt slightly more at ease when he saw her expression. Elder Bone Spirit and the others' plan this time round could be said to be flawless. If there was truly a variable, it could only be Goddess True Jade. Chapter 1185. several hundred kilometers away from the old capital of Yin country. The Patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect, Blood Mist Sect and Seven Kills Sect exchanged glances and nodded. All of them stopped in their tracks and looked in the direction of the old capital of Yin country. Why aren't you guys leaving? The Patriarch of Stellar Luna Sect asked with a frown. It's nothing. We're just waiting for an outcome. The Patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect replied indifferently. The Patriarch of Stellar Luna Sect was shocked and asked hurriedly, You guys really attacked Araki Takashi? The Patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect sneered. If Stellar Luna Sect doesn't attack, other sects will. That lad won't live past today. Elder Bone Spirit of Dragon Tiger Sect had not only invited conjoint body mighty figures of Blood Mist Sect, Dark Ghost Sect and other sects for help. He had also lobbied the other sections. However, sects such as Stellar Luna Sect did not agree. The Morone clan's leader was silent for a moment before shaking his head. Araki Takashi wants to impart martial arts to all living beings. If he succeeds, it will be the fortune of all living beings in the world. You guys shouldn't have killed him. Humph. The Yuan clan's leader said coldly with an unfriendly tone. Araki Takashi does not differentiate between good and evil, and is sworn brothers with fiend demons. He does things based on his heart, and is not restrained. If someone like that is left alive and allowed to grow, it will definitely be a huge disaster for the North region. The Patriarch of Seven Kills Sect nodded as well. That's right. This lad is way too sharp, and has to be killed. The Patriarch of Stellar Luna Sect and the others did not agree with that statement. Of course, they were not willing to argue with the Patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect and the others over this matter. The Valley Master of Blaze Columbus Valley asked, Who's there? Including Elder Bone Spirit of my sect, there are a total of 6 Grand Elders. The Sect Master of Dragon Tiger Sect said proudly. The Patriarch of Stellar Luna Sect and the others were shocked. They exchanged glances and sighed internally, shaking their heads. There was no hope. Initially, they thought that Araki Takashi's fortune was strong, and he had many trump cards. Perhaps he might be able to find a chance to escape. Now that he heard that there were 6 conjoint body mighty figures attacking, he would definitely die. Elder Gu Ling and the rest have already sealed the space there. It should be over soon. The Patriarch of the Dragon Tiger Sect muttered softly. Although he knew that there wouldn't be any accidents, he still wanted to wait and see the final result. A gust of cold wind blew. The Patriarch of the Dragon Tiger Sect suddenly felt a chill. He couldn't help but frown slightly as he muttered to himself. There won't be any changes, right? After pondering for a long time, he shook his head and said, I don't think so. Absolutely not. The old capital of the Yin Kingdom. Oh right, I forgot to tell you. Elder Gu Ling suddenly let out a laugh and said, We only decided to make our move after we were sure that nothing was happening in the Dragon Burial Valley. Therefore, you don't have to rely on that ancestor to save you. We have already anticipated all the variables that you can think of. Elder Gu Ling sighed. Araki Takashi, it's time to send you on your way. You've predicted all the variables? Not necessarily, Suzimo said indifferently before looking at Goddess True Jade, who was not far away and cupped his fists. Senior, I hope that you can help us in this calamity. Goddess True Jade was not standing together with Suzimo and the others. It was only at this moment that Elder Gu Ling and the others truly noticed her. What a beauty! Exalted Master Lang you could not help but exclaim. Elder Gu Ling and the others glanced at Goddess True Jade and frowned. Although this woman was indeed extremely beautiful, she was not very attractive to old men like them. Furthermore, apart from her beauty, there was nothing special about her. She did not exude any powerful aura either, and looked like a mortal. Goddess True Jade looked at Suzimo with a fake smile and asked instead, Why should I help you? Suzimo smiled bitterly. It's clear that the 6 conjoint body mighty figures have no intention of killing me alone. I'm afraid you won't be able to stay out of this, Senior. That's fine, Goddess True Jade said indifferently. At that time, I'll just take Little Fox away. No one can stop me. What has your lives got to do with me? All of you have to die. None of you can escape. Elder Lust Fiend of Blood Mist Sect licked his lips and said with a murderous aura, Goddess True Jade frowned in displeasure. However, Elder Guling and the others did not notice at all. Even if they noticed the change in Goddess True Jade's expression, they would not take it to heart. Don't, exalted Master Lang Yu said hurriedly. Fellow Taoists, please do me a favor. Leave this beauty and that fox to me. Why? Are you tempted, exalted Master? Elder Hasia of Dark Ghost Sect asked. Exalted Master Lang Yu smiled knowingly and nodded. This woman is a supreme-grade beauty. Her beauty is rare in the world. Since I've bumped into her, there's no way I can let her go. Elder Hasia said with a smile. I know a secret technique that can make this beauty serve you obediently and serve you as her master. She'll definitely be loyal and let you train her. Exalted Master Lang Yu's eyes lit up. The two of them discussed as though there was no one else around, and did not notice that Goddess True Jade's expression had already turned completely cold. You guys truly have a death wish, she murmured softly. Oh, are you angry, lass? Exalted Master Lang Yu smiled sinisterly. Even when you're angry, you're still so charming. Lang Yu. Right then, Elder Guling hollered. He had already vaguely realized that something was amiss. He could not see through this woman's cultivation realm. Initially, he thought that she was a mortal. However, why would a mortal appear here? Furthermore, how could she remain calm under the envelopment of their auras? Could this woman be a conjoint body mighty figure as well? However, Elder Guling was puzzled. Every single conjoint body mighty figure was famous and known throughout the world. It was impossible for him not to know them. However, in his memories, he had never seen this woman before. Goddess True Jade, kill them. Right then, Little Fox clenched her tiny claws and shouted. All right, Goddess True Jade nodded. She did not seem to make much of a move. With a single step, she ignored the distance between them and arrived before Elder Hasia instantly. Psst! What speed? Elder Hasia was alarmed. He did not have time to think, and instinctively threw a backhand punch towards Goddess True Jade. A conjoint body mighty figure could shake the world with a single move. What seemed like a simple punch released an extremely terrifying power. Countless ghostly shadows burst forth at the same time and lunged towards Goddess True Jade. Goddess True Jade's expression did not change. She merely opened her mouth slightly and exhaled gently. Instantly, the temperature in the void plummeted. Even Su Zimo and the others on the ground felt a bone-chilling chill. It was as though the world had frozen. Crack, crack, crack. Countless ghostly shadows froze instantly when they were blown by the cold air. A layer of frost and ice covered Elder Hasia's fists and arms as well. His fist speed decreased drastically. Right then, Goddess True Jade extended a fair finger that was crystal clear and tender. Instantly, it tapped Elder Hasia's glabella. It was too fast. Although the exchange between the two parties sounded slow, it actually happened in a flash. Elder Hasia's expression froze as disbelief flashed through his eyes. Thereafter, his gaze dimmed and he fell from midair. Before he landed on the ground, there was already no life in his body. A conjoint body mighty figure was dead. Chapter 1186. The expressions of Elder Bone's spirit and the others changed. This turn of events was completely beyond their expectations. Even though they had vaguely sensed that something was amiss, they did not expect that this seemingly weak and devastatingly beautiful woman would be so terrifying the moment she attacked. Even Elder Black Evil could not last more than 2 moves against this woman. Su Zimo and the others were shocked as well. There was no need to talk about the others. Apart from Little Fox, they did not know who Goddess True Jade was at all. Su Zimo, on the other hand, was clear about Goddess True Jade's background. He had also heard Monk Yuan Bei mention that Goddess True Jade had entered the conjoint body realm after cultivating for 2,000 years. Her potential was heaven-defying and could be said to be terrifying. However, the Great Qian Empire was destroyed later on, and Princess Yufei disappeared as well. According to his deduction, Goddess True Jade should have been sleeping in the volcano beneath the ruins, and only awakened in this lifetime. In other words, Goddess True Jade's cultivation was at least at the conjoint body realm. Su Zimo thought about it again. It was reasonable for Goddess True Jade to be able to kill Elder Black Evil so easily. According to his calculations, Goddess True Jade should be around 12,000 years old. For a conjoint body cultivator with a lifespan of 20,000 years, she was at her peak and had strong blood chi. However, Elder Black Evil was already in his twilight years, and only had a few hundred years to live. His blood chi was declining, and his combat strength was reduced. He was naturally no match for Goddess True Jade. Furthermore, Elder Black Evil had underestimated his opponent. Who would have thought that such a terrifying variable would be hidden in the ruins? Everyone watch out! Elder Bone Spirit reminded hurriedly. The remaining 5 conjoint body mighty figures reacted extremely quickly as well. They made a prompt decision, and attacked Goddess True Jade almost at the same time. Suddenly, a gigantic bone saber appeared in Elder Bone Spirit's hand. It burned with white flames and emitted a terrifying aura. Swash! Wielding his saber with both hands, Elder Bone Spirit charged towards Goddess True Jade. Dragon Tiger Sex specialized in body tempering. Even though he was in his twilight years, his specialty was still melee combat. Yuan Xiong took out a gigantic and heavy metal spear from his storage bag and dragged it through the void. He strode towards Goddess True Jade as well. 7 kills Sex Elder Cruel Sun, Blood Mist Sex Elder Malice Fiend, and Mystic Firmament Divine Cult's Exalted Master Lang Yu released powerful dermic arts from the periphery. Blood Mist Devour. Elder Rash Demon formed a hand seal and pointed forward. Blood mist spread out around his body and rapidly condensed into a blood-colored head. It was ferocious and terrifying as it attempted to devour the Goddess of True Jade. 7 Killing Sword. Elder Kanyang uttered a roar with a cold expression and slashed forward with his finger. Suddenly 7 murderous swords appeared above Goddess True Jade's head. The cold aura was oppressive as they slashed down towards her. Exalted Master Lang Yu's forehead flickered, and an ancient mirror appeared. Black Heavenly Mirror, Sea of Misery. Wielding a mighty figure dermic weapon, Exalted Master Lang Yu conjured hand seals and shot a stream of dermic powers into the ancient mirror. The ancient mirror suddenly emitted a wisp of light that scattered into the void where Goddess True Jade had landed. Rumble! Boom! A shocking scene descended. Su Zimo and the others looked up only to see a vast ocean appear out of nowhere in midair. It covered the skies and the sun with surging waves, as though it could devour all living beings in it. They could clearly sense that every drop of seawater in the Sea of Misery was condensed from incomparably pure dermic powers. A single drop of seawater could cause mountains to collapse and kill the Dharma Daojun with ease. Everyone was shocked. Conjoint body mighty figures truly had the ability to shake the world and move mountains and seas. Ranged attacks and melee combat. Although this was the first time the 5 conjoint body mighty figures were working together, they were experienced and had great chemistry. Their attacks were terrifying and almost drowned Goddess True Jade. Although they had witnessed Goddess True Jade's methods, Su Zimo and the others still looked worried. Sharp swords hovered in the air, and the Sea of Misery beneath her feet. A blood mist surged as the bone saber and iron spear attacked. Goddess True Jade's expression was still indifferent against such a sharp and dense attack. She moved gracefully and charged towards Yuan Xiong at the side, leaving behind a series of graceful figures. She was truly graceful and graceful like a swimming dragon. Even in battle, Goddess True Jade's posture was extremely beautiful without any hint of wretchedness. What was even rarer was that she managed to dodge more than half of the attacks with her beautiful dance. The 7 kills swords missed. Goddess True Jade extended her jade-like hand and suddenly pulled out a jade-green jade hairpin from her black hair. It was only the length of a finger. Her black hair cascaded down and fluttered with the wind, making her look even more elegant. Goddess True Jade raised her hand. Shoo! A jade-green light flashed and instantly pierced through the incoming blood-colored head. The blood-colored head paused in midair for a moment before exploding. With a flash of light, the jade hairpin pierced towards Elder Rash Fiend's glabella. Ah! Elder Rash Fiend was alarmed. He had not expected Goddess True Jade to have the strength to counterattack despite being surrounded. Furthermore, he had attacked from afar, and did not expect Goddess True Jade to be the first to attack him. The jade hairpin arrived instantly. In a flash, Elder Rash Fiend withdrew a gigantic turtle shell from his storage bag and raised his hand to block the jade hairpin. The origin of the turtle shell was not simple. It was obtained from killing a pure-blooded mystic turtle demon in the East Ocean. The most indestructible part of the mystic turtle was the shell on its back. It might even be tougher than perfect mighty figure dermic weapons. Clang! The jade hairpin collided with the mystic turtle shell with a crisp sound. Immediately after, Elder Rash Demon heard a horrifying sound in his ears. It was as though something had shattered in front of him. Could it be? A thought flashed through Elder Rash Fiend's mind. That was impossible. That small jade hairpin was incomparably fragile. How could it pierce through the shell of a mystic turtle demon? Unless that jade hairpin is a Dharma treasure. Dharma treasures were weapons that were fused with the power of divine powers, and could only be wielded by Ancestor Realm experts. Elder Rash Fiend stared at the turtle shell in his palm, and his pupils constricted. Crack! The center of the tortoise shell suddenly shattered, and a green ray of light instantly penetrated his palm without any hindrance. Ah! In pain, Elder Rash Fiend shrieked. However, his shrieks stopped right after. A bloody hole appeared in Elder Rash Fiend's glabella. Behind his head, a jade-green jade hairpin pierced through his skull slowly and peeked out. There was no blood or filth on the jade hairpin. Elder Rash Fiend died on the spot. Against the encirclement of 5 conjoint body mighty figures, Goddess True Jade attacked domineeringly and killed one of them right away. However, she had yet to stop. Stepping on the jade waves of the Sea of Misery, she distanced herself from Elder Bone's spirit and avoided the 7 kills sword, arriving before Yuan Xiong. Herg! Yuan Xiong was old but strong. With a roar, he raised his iron spear with both hands and stabbed it towards Goddess True Jade. The power of this spear was so great and fast that it even stirred up circles of ripples around the body of the spear. The spear tore through the air and pierced towards Goddess True Jade's face. Chapter 1187. Against the incoming heavy iron spear, Goddess True Jade's expression did not change. She reached out with her slender hand and gripped the tip of the iron spear. Yuan Xiong's expression changed, and he wanted to release his blood chi to push Goddess True Jade away. However, no matter how hard he tried and his face flushed red, he could not make Goddess True Jade budge at all. Even Goddess True Jade's wrist did not show any signs of trembling. It was only at this moment that Yuan Xiong realized the difference between him and Goddess True Jade. Unfortunately, he realized it too late. Old but immortal. Suddenly Goddess True Jade spoke. Gripping the iron spear in her right hand, she strode forward and reached out with her left hand, slapping Yuan Xiong's chest in a seemingly light manner. You're a thief. The moment she said that, Goddess True Jade's palm pressed against Yuan Xiong's chest as well. Bang! Yuan Xiong's chest caved in rapidly, and was almost stuck to his spine. It looked like he was turned into paper by Goddess True Jade's palm strike. The body of a conjoint body mighty figure fused with the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, and was filled with dermic powers. It was invulnerable to weapons, water and fire, and would not decay through time. To think that his life force would be severed by Goddess True Jade's seemingly weak palm. Yuan Xiong's essence spirit flew out from the top of his head, and fled into the distance with a flustered expression. Even if he did not have much lifespan left, he did not want to be beaten to death by a woman who appeared out of nowhere in such a muddle-headed manner. Goddess True Jade did not even look at him. Turning around, she walked towards exalted Master Lang Yu like an immortal. This was nothing more than the so-called wave-like subtle steps. Yuan Xiong was delighted. It was better to be able to escape a calamity than to perish and vanish. However, before the joy in his eyes dissipated, he felt a strong sense of danger, and caught sight of a jade-green light from the corner of his eye. It's that jade hairpin. A final thought flashed through Yuan Xiong's mind. Poof! The jade hairpin pierced through his essence spirit without stopping. Yuan Xiong was dead. Goddess True Jade's methods were so domineering and terrifying that half of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures were killed in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo and the others were invigorated. Of course, the remaining 3 conjoint body mighty figures were even more difficult to deal with. Among them, Exalted Master Lang Yu of the Mystic Firmament Divine Cult, was at the peak of his life. His qi and blood were far from what the other 5 conjoint body elders could compare to. As expected, Master Lang Yu had a stern look on his face. He performed a series of hand seals and channeled his dharmic powers into the mirror before him. Although Exalted Master Lang Yu did not hold back with his words, his combat strength was indeed much stronger than Elder Wuxia and the others. Black Sky Treasure Mirror. Hidden dragon emerges from the sea. As Exalted Master Lang Yu roared, the initially turbulent sea of misery suddenly collapsed, forming a huge vortex. A divine dragon with a terrifying aura emerged from the surface of the sea. Its horns were prominent, and its gaze was sharp. It opened its mouth and let out an earth-shaking dragon roar at Goddess True Jade. Su Zimo's heart trembled. Although the divine dragon was only condensed from Exalted Master Lang Yu's dharmic powers, it was already lifelike and filled with a dragon's might as its roar shook the heavens. Under the divine dragon's gaze, Goddess True Jade stood on the water ripples. She looked extremely tiny, as if she could be devoured at any moment. Insignificant tricks. That's all. Goddess True Jade harumphed coldly and stomped her foot gently. The initially turbulent sea of misery calmed down instantly, as though it was dealt a heavy blow after that stomp. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, frost filled the sea of misery and spread rapidly in all directions with Goddess True Jade as the center. The divine dragon that had just leaped out of the sea merely roared. Before it could do anything, it was enveloped by the cold air and froze into ice. This, Exalted Master Lang Yu looked flustered. That dharmic art could be considered as his strongest trump card. However, he had not expected it to be completely useless in front of Goddess True Jade. At that moment, Goddess True Jade had already arrived in front of him with a cold expression. "They're old fools. If they die, so be it. However, you're different. Initially, I wanted to spare your life on account that it wasn't easy for you to cultivate. Unfortunately, you're brazen enough to have designs on me. I can only send you on your way." Before she finished her sentence, Goddess True Jade had already extended her palm and slapped Exalted Master Lang Yu's head. Exalted Master Lang Yu did not dare to be careless, and hurriedly hovered the ancient mirror in front of him above his head, emitting a blazing beam of light. The beam of light was so powerful that it could even penetrate the bodies of conjoint body mighty figures. However, when the beam of light landed on Goddess True Jade's slender palm, it did not cause any ripples. All of a sudden, a scorching flame appeared in Goddess True Jade's palm and enveloped the ancient mirror, burning furiously. "Pust!" Exalted Master Lang Yu gasped. That ancient mirror was his destiny dharmic weapon that was passed down from Mystic Firmament Divine Cult. Coupled with his sex cultivation technique, the Mystic Firmament Treasure Mirror, it was extremely powerful. However, against the flames in Goddess True Jade's palm, the ancient mirror trembled and was burned red, almost transparent. "I'm going all out." Exalted Master Lang Yu's eyes were bloodshot as he bit the tip of his tongue gently and spat out a mouthful of essence blood onto the ancient mirror. That was his destiny dharmic weapon, and he could not abandon it. Augmented by the essence blood, the ancient mirror shone brightly and continued to defend with all its might. A look of mockery flashed through Goddess True Jade's eyes as she retracted the flames in her palm. Replacing them was a bone-chilling coldness that enveloped the ancient mirror instantly. Shing! The powers of ice and fire were all used on the ancient mirror, emanating an extremely terrifying aura. Not only Master Lang Yu, but even Elder Gu Ling and Elder Qinyang, who were charging forward, were startled by the aura. They exclaimed, "Master Lang Yu, the power of divine powers." The power of extreme cold and extreme heat acted on the ancient mirror, causing a terrifying power to erupt. It was an existence that surpassed dharmic powers. Divine powers. Divine powers were divided into many levels: minor, major, or peerless divine powers. However, no matter what, the power of divine powers was a power that only Ancestor Realm experts could control. That power was already above the conjoint body realm. It was only at that moment that Elder Bone Spirit and the other two realized that the woman before them was not at the conjoint body realm, but a half-step Mahayana. In other words, she was a legendary half-martial ancestor expert. This turn of events truly scared the three of them out of their wits. Boom! Under the effect of the divine ability, the ancient mirror directly exploded. Many shards flew towards Goddess True Jade and fell before they could approach her. However, Exalted Master Lang Yu was not that lucky. His destiny dermic weapon was destroyed, and his essence spirit was implicated. As though he was struck by lightning, his body shuddered and his mind was in a mess. At that moment, the shards of the dermic weapon surged towards him. He could not dodge at all. Those dermic weapon shards contained remnant power of divine powers, and were shockingly powerful. Many dermic weapon shards entered his body instantly and penetrated it, causing blood to splatter. His consciousness was pierced by at least 3 shards, and his essence spirit was smashed into pieces and dissipated a long time ago. Exalted Master Lang Yu's corpse fell onto the ruins, and he was dead. Goddess True Jade seemed to despise Exalted Master Lang Yu, and did not even touch his clothes the entire time. However, Exalted Master Lang Yu was already a dead man. Chapter 1188. A huge battle broke out between both sides, and in a flash, only 2 of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures were left. Furthermore, Elder Bone Spirit and Elder Cruel Sun were both old men in their twilight years. How could this be? How could there be a half-martial ancestor expert in this desolate and dilapidated old capital? Ancestor realm. Even a half-martial ancestor was a barrier that many conjoint body mighty figures could not touch. Throughout history, countless paragon cultivators had entered the conjoint body realm and become mighty figures. Which of these mighty figures did not have immense fortune and countless fortuitous encounters? Which of them were not famous existences? However, as time passed by, how many of these conjoint body mighty figures could take that step and enter the Mahayana realm? Even half a step was enough to stump countless mighty figures, let alone a single step. These mighty figures had omnipotent means and intimidated everyone. They reigned supreme in the world with few enemies and had lifespans of 20,000 years. However, most of them stopped before the ancestor realm and died after expending their lifespans. At the ancestor realm, one could comprehend divine powers, and their lifespans could reach 100,000 years. From a lifespan of 20,000 years to a lifespan of 100,000 years, the gigantic gap between the 2 major realms could be seen. Elder Bone Spirit stood motionlessly on the spot with complicated emotions in his eyes. There was panic, unwillingness, fear, and remorse. Elder Cruel Sun reacted extremely quickly and did not have that many thoughts in his mind. He made a prompt decision and turned to flee without stopping. Why waste your energy? You won't be able to escape. Goddess True Jade smiled indifferently and strode forward. As though she had transcended the limits of space, she caught up to Elder Cruel Sun in the blink of an eye. I'll fight it out with you. Seeing that he could not escape, Elder Cruel Sun turned around suddenly. His eyes were bloodshot as he conjured hand seals repeatedly and growled, 8th kill killing body. 7 kills sect had 7 killing techniques to begin with. However, in reality, only a small number of people in the sect knew that there was an 8th kill above the 7 kills. The killing body technique. The so-called killing body technique was to sacrifice one's life to release the most terrifying attack. Once that secret skill was released, the first to die would be him. Elder Cruel Sun's body expanded at a visible speed. Every single drop of flesh was filled with powerful dermic powers and was almost about to explode. Goddess True Jade waved her sleeve gently, and a stream of frost enveloped Elder Cruel Sunday. The boiling force in Elder Cruel Sun's body calmed down instantly. His body was covered in layers of frost, with a bone-piercing chill. You can die if you want, but stay away from me. Don't get any blood on me. True Jade said with a frown. She had always been clean. Even after experiencing a great battle, her body was still spotless, and she hated filthy things like blood the most. The layers of frost froze Elder Cruel Sun's bloodline and dermic powers. Even his consciousness was invaded by the frost chi, and gradually turned into ice. Elder Kanyang could only stare. A chill invaded his body, and he couldn't even move his eyeballs. Gradually, Frost covered his entire sea of consciousness. His primordial spirit was also covered in ice crystals. His vitality was cut off. Elder Kanyang had already turned into a human-shaped ice cube. Goddess True Jade casually waved her hand and slapped it. Elder Kanyang shattered into many pieces of ice without any blood splattering on the ground. It was a pity that a mighty figure was a famous expert of the North region 10,000 years ago, and was invincible. To think that he would end up with his spirit destroyed, and his corpse destroyed today. Of the 6 conjoint body mighty figures, only one was left. Elder Bone's spirit did not escape. He knew very well that there was no way he could escape given his capabilities against a half-martial ancestor. Looking at the white-robed woman who was walking over slowly, Elder Bone's spirit felt a strong sense of indignation. Finally, he could not help but ask, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you? Which sect are you from?" "Why are you asking that?" Goddess True Jade asked instead of answering. "I just want to know the reason why I'm dying." Elder Bone's spirit gripped his fist slightly and said slowly, "As a half-martial ancestor, you're definitely not a nobody. I've cultivated in the cultivation world for more than 20,000 years, but I've never seen you before." Goddess True Jade said indifferently, 10,000 years ago, I lived in the palace all year round, and almost never walked around the cultivation world. Naturally, you haven't seen me before." 10,000 years ago? In the palace? Elder Bone's spirit was stunned. Before long, he realized something and his heart skipped a beat as he exclaimed, "Why, you're from the Great Qian Empire." Pausing for a moment, Elder Bone's spirit thought of a legendary figure and exclaimed, "You're the Princess Yufei of the Great Qian Empire." "That's me," Goddess True Jade nodded. "You can go on your way now without worry." Looking at Goddess True Jade's jade finger that was piercing over, Elder Bone's spirit's lips curled into a bitter smile as he sighed. "Even with all my schemes, I can't win against fate." Bang! Goddess True Jade's finger tapped Elder Bone's spirit's glabella. Elder Guling's body shuddered, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. He fell from midair and died. Su Zimo and the others lamented when they saw that. This was how cruel the cultivation world was. Conjoint body mighty figures were almost at the peak of the cultivation world. However, if these people took a wrong step, they would still end up dying without a good ending. Under normal circumstances, the appearance of 6 conjoint body mighty figures to join forces to kill Su Zimo, this time round, could be said to be a guaranteed victory, without any unforeseen circumstances. They had taken into account almost all the possible variables that could happen. Unfortunately, the plans of man were not as good as the plans of the heavens. They had not expected that the woman who had been asleep for 10,000 years in the Great Qian Empire would awaken and become the only variable in this sure-kill situation. And that variable was going to cost their lives. "Thank you for saving us, Senior True Jade. I'm eternally grateful." Su Zimo bowed to Goddess True Jade. This time round, if Goddess True Jade had not made a move, all of them would have been doomed. Goddess True Jade rolled her eyes at Su Zimo and said indifferently, "I didn't want to save you. I just didn't want Little Fox to be injured." Monkey and the others were carefree, and did not think too much about it, merely lamenting to themselves that they were lucky. However, the few women present were exceptionally sensitive. Ji Yaoxue, Xiaoning and the others shifted their gazes between Goddess True Jade and Su Zimo, as they muttered internally. If she was worried that Little Fox would be injured, she could have just taken her away. Why did she have to fight? They had a feeling that there was something between Su Zimo and Goddess True Jade that no one else knew about. Goddess True Jade's gaze landed on Su Zimo's embrace and she asked, "Little Fox, are you coming with me or staying?" "Your Highness, can't you stay as well?" Little Fox blinked her large eyes and asked timidly. Shaking her head, Goddess True Jade said, "I'm leaving." Pausing for a moment, she continued, "If you want to leave with me, I'll bring you along. Naturally, I won't let you suffer. However, if you want to stay, I won't force you either." "Your Highness, I can't bear to part with you either." But Little Fox was in a difficult position and had a conflicted expression, unable to continue. In her heart, she wanted to stay by Su Zimo's side with Monkey and the others. Her days in the Myriad Demon Valley were carefree, and she was very happy. However, Goddess True Jade had been in a deep slumber for 10,000 years. When she woke up, she did not have a single old friend by her side and was alone. It was truly pitiful. Goddess True Jade smiled. I understand. With that said, she turned to leave and a voice sounded slowly. Su Zimo, take good care of her. Otherwise, I'll look for you again. Chapter 1189. The North region should be peaceful for a period of time now that this matter is over. The old immortal crane lamented. After the battle between Su Zimo and Dao Lord Xianyu, Stellar Luna sect, Blaze Columbus Valley, and some other upper sects had already expressed that they were no longer calculative about past grudges. But now that 6 conjoint body mighty figures were dead, it wouldn't be long before the news spread through the entire North region. The upper sects and aristocratic families should quieten down as well. Over the years, the North region has been in turmoil with feudal lords rising and wars raging everywhere. Su Zimo said, after the calamity of the Witch Gu and the collapse of 3 dynasties, the North region is already riddled with holes. I hope that there'll be a period of peace for us to recuperate. Zimo, what are your plans from now on? Ji Yashua asked. That's right. Xianyu is already dead, and we've avenged the 13 cities of Yan country. It's a load off our minds. Brother, where are you going from now on? Xiaoning asked in agreement. The old immortal crane smiled. Why don't you follow me back to Misty Peak? More than 100 years ago, you were forced to leave because you were afraid of implicating the sect. Now you can return. Sure. Nianqi nodded hurriedly. Su Zimo remained silent. Why don't you follow us to the demon region? Monkey grinned. Ling Hu used the demon ceiling diagram this time round, and brought almost everyone who can fight with Howling Moon Mountain over. If we head to the Wild Lion Ridge of the North region, we can also rule over a mountain and become a territorial lord. A territorial lord? Ling Hu shook his head and pursed his lips, declaring arrogantly, now that we're gathered, we have to become overlords no matter what. That's right. This time round, Monkey did not mock Ling Hu. Ji Yaoshua smiled without saying anything. Be it Wild Lion Ridge or Misty Peak, they were both in the North region. As long as they were in the North region, there would definitely be some opportunities for them to meet. Su Zimo did not reply the entire time, and looked into a corner in deep thought. A long time later he smiled apologetically. I have to go somewhere else and leave for a while. Ah, where to? Is it dangerous? Xiaoning asked hurriedly with a worried expression. I'm fine. Su Zimo smiled. There's no one else there. It's very safe. After pausing for a moment, Su Zimo took a deep breath. His eyes were resolute as he slowly said, there's something that I need to do. What? Everyone asked subconsciously. Deduce Wu Dao. Su Zimo said word by word. Everyone was shocked. They were well aware of Su Zimo's Dao heart. Araki Takashi established the Dao and imparted martial arts to all living beings. These words were clear to the entire cultivation world. However, everyone was even more aware of how difficult this path was. He was opening up a path that no one had ever walked before. To deduce his own Dao and Dharma, this is too difficult. It was rare for Night Spirit to say something. He shook his head slightly. Since ancient times, how many sages and experts had tried this Dao? They had exhausted their lifespans, but they still hadn't obtained anything. And Su Zimo was only at the return to void stage. That's right. Su Zimo smiled gently. That's why I don't know when I'll be back after this trip. Where are you going, young master? Nianqi asked. The Dao Inheritance Ground. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. I want to enter the Dao Inheritance Ground again. There are still many ancient inheritances that I have yet to comprehend. After obtaining those inheritances, I'll fuse them with everything I've seen, heard, learned, felt and comprehended in this lifetime. I'll do my best to deduce Wu Dao. This was the result of Su Zimo's careful consideration. Right now his cultivation was already at the perfected void reversion realm. However, the Dao Inheritance Ground was a space of its own with many seals. If he entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he would not be able to enter. This was his last chance. This time round, no one tried to persuade or stop him. This was Su Zimo's Dao heart. It was something that he had to complete. It wasn't easy for us brothers to reunite, but we're going to be separated again. Ling Hu was a little depressed. It's not like we're going to some dangerous place. We'll meet sooner or later. On the other hand, Monkey was carefree. Let's take a look at Wild Lion Ridge then. If we're in a good mood, we'll occupy the mountain and stay there for a period of time. When you come out, look for us at Wild Lion Ridge and mention our names. It'll definitely be useful. All right. Su Zimo laughed and turned to ask, what are your plans, Xiaoning? I'll stay in the north region for a period of time and see if the calamity of the witch Gu will revive. Xiaoning held on to Ji Yaoshua's arm and said, I'll accompany Sister Yaoshua as well. If there's nothing else in the north region, I'll return to Elixir Yang sect to take a look. Come to think of it, you haven't returned for more than 100 years. It's time for you to go back and take a look. Su Zimo nodded. The Great Zhou dynasty was a fusion of 3 dynasties and had many political affairs. Naturally, Ji Yaoshua had to stay in the Great Zhou dynasty. Ni and Qi returned to Misty Peak. Everyone's direction was set, and in the blink of an eye, they were about to part ways. Young master. Right then a timid voice sounded. Everyone turned towards the voice. In the crowd, a boy with long hair was looking at Su Zimo with flushed cheeks. Seemingly nervous, he gripped the corner of his robes and asked softly, where am I going? Little Momo, of course you're going with us. Ching Ching pinched Momo's tender cheeks and smiled. You're a demon. Follow us and we'll bring you good food. Momo's face turned even redder, but she did not say anything. Su Zimo smiled and asked, where do you want to go? Can I follow you to the Dao inheritance ground, young master? Momo blinked her watery eyes and asked expectantly. No, Su Zimo shook his head. It was not that he was heartless, but the Dao inheritance ground was restricted by the will of a mighty figure. If Momo entered, her blood qi and dermic powers would be suppressed, and she would be of no benefit to the child. Furthermore, the place he wanted to go to was a forbidden ground in the Dao inheritance ground, where outsiders could not enter at all. Oh, Momo was a little disappointed. Su Zimo said, why don't you follow Ching Ching and the others to Wild Lion Ridge? Momo tilted her head slightly, as though she was thinking hard. After a moment she asked, if I leave, who's going to protect the grandparents, uncles and aunts of Pingyang Town? When he heard that question, Su Zimo looked at Momo with a gentle gaze. No one. Su Zimo shook his head. I'd better stay then. Stay in Pingyang Town. Momo said seriously. Ching Ching said, but how lonely are you? You're the only demon. That's not true. Momo revealed an innocent smile. The grandparents in the town treat me really well. They're not afraid of me, and even told me many things about young master in the past. The elders of Pingyang Town were extremely grateful to the Su family and the second young master of the Su family. When Su Hong was the king, he protected Pingyang Town from the flames of war. Later on, when the alliance army of the 3 dynasties invaded, the second young master of the Su family appeared and buried the alliance army in Songlang mountain range. In the town, he killed many Jining Jinjuan who chased after him. That scene was witnessed by many people. Some of the young children were more than 100 years old. They were the elders of Pingyang Town. In fact, they even vaguely knew that the reason why Pingyang Town was safe and sound in this chaotic world was because of the second young master of the Su family. The story of the Su family and the legend of second young master Su's immortalhood had been passed down from their seniors. All right. Su Zimo caressed Momo's forehead gently and said gently, stay in Pingyang Town and wait for my return. Yes. Momo's eyes lit up and she nodded vigorously. Chapter 1190. The Patriarch of Dragon Tiger Sect and the others gathered together and did not go far. They looked in the direction of the old capital of Yin country hundreds of kilometers away, waiting for the final outcome. Before long, a violent fluctuation came from the direction of the old capital. The spirit consciousness barrier and spatial seal outside had already been removed, and the outline of a dilapidated city could be vaguely seen. It's over. The patriarch of Dragon Tiger sect heaved a sigh of relief. In his opinion, the 6 conjoint body mighty figures must have killed Suzimo and the others before removing the spatial seal. Araki Takashi establishing his Tao, monster incarnate of history? He still can't escape the fate of being killed. The patriarch of Dark Ghost sect sneered. Araki Takashi's death can be considered as a weight off our minds. The sect master of Blood Mist sect laughed and shook his head. Given that lad's talent, it's truly hard to imagine what level he would reach if he were allowed to continue growing. That's right. If he were to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm, even those 6 conjoint body mighty figures might not be able to kill him. The sect master of Mystic Firmament Divine Cult agreed. Unfortunately, a monster incarnate of a generation was killed just like that. The patriarch of Stellar Luna sect lamented. The Morong clan leader shook his head in pity as well. Actually, after witnessing Araki Takashi personally, they were already convinced by Araki Takashi's magnanimity and were unwilling to be enemies with him. However, they did not expect Araki Takashi to still end up in such a tragic state. Let's go, the patriarch of Stellar Luna sect said. Now that Araki Takashi is dead, the patriarch of Dragon Burial Valley is probably going to come out of seclusion. I wonder what sort of chaos is going to happen in the North region. Yes, the Morong clan leader nodded and turned to leave. Right then, she swept her gaze and could not help but exclaim softly. Pausing in her tracks, she looked in the direction of the old capital of Yin country with a confused expression. The leaders of the other upper sects and aristocratic families noticed this as well. They saw a spirit boat rising from the old capital and speeding toward them. The patriarch of Dragon Tiger sect frowned slightly. Elder Guling and the rest were definitely not on the spiritual boat. Given the capabilities of conjoint body mighty figures, there was no need for them to ride a spirit vessel. Furthermore, the speed of the spirit vessel would not be that slow. Could it be that Elder Guling and the others were merciful and did not kill all of them and left some unimportant people alive? Just as everyone was pondering, the spirit boat was getting closer and closer. One after another, figures stood at the bow of the spirit vessel. Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others focused their attention and could not help but be shocked. Their mouths opened subconsciously as disbelief surged in their eyes. The leader of the spirit vessel wore green robes and had black hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. He had delicate features and was none other than Taoist Araki Takashi, who should have been dead. How could this be? What were Elder Guling and the rest doing? If Araki Takashi was not dead, why did Elder Guling and the others remove the divine sense barrier, unseal the space, and allow Araki Takashi and the others to leave? Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch, Blood Mist sect's master, and the others glared at the figure on the spirit vessel with widened eyes. A guess flashed through their minds. However, this conjecture was simply too shocking. It was simply impossible. At that moment, the figure on the spirit boat lowered his head slightly and looked over. There was a hint of mockery in those deep, dark eyes. Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others panicked. In fact, they did not even dare to meet Suzimo's gaze. Very soon, the spirit vessel passed over their heads without stopping for a single moment. Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others exchanged glances and hurriedly moved towards the old capital of Yin country. They wanted to head over and see what exactly happened there. Stellar Luna sect's patriarch and the others were curious as well and followed. Before long, many upper sects patriarch and aristocratic family leaders arrived above the old capital once more. Looking down, they caught sight of a few corpses in the ruins. Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others turned pale and swayed. Dead. All 6 conjoint body mighty figures were dead without a single survivor. When they recalled Araki Takashi's gaze just now, Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others felt chills run down their spines. They did not know what happened just now in the old capital. However, they knew that it was an extremely foolish decision to kill them this time round. On the spirit vessel, Suzimo did not attack Dragon Tiger sect's patriarch and the others. Firstly, he had just fought a huge battle with Tao Lord Xianyu and was extremely exhausted. He did not want to start another battle. Secondly, the death of 6 conjoint body mighty figures was already a huge loss for these upper sections. Furthermore, the 6 mighty figures were no longer related to the sect. There was no way he could start a massacre and kill these upper sects patriarch just because of them. Of course, this matter would not end just like that. He would remember this debt for now and settle it another day. Monkey and the others were reluctant and did not leave first. They insisted on sending Su Zimo to the Dragon Burial Valley before parting ways. None of them were in a hurry to travel and chatted and laughed on the spirit vessel. Although the spirit vessel was slow, it still arrived at the edge of the Dragon Burial Valley after more than 10 days. All right, there's no need to send me off anymore. Su Zimo turned around and looked at everyone. He smiled and cupped his fists. I'll be gone for a long time and don't know when I'll return. Everyone take care. Young master, Little Fox called out softly with reddened eyes. She was about to cry at the impending departure. Su Zimo slapped his forehead and took out a pitch-black metal cover from his storage bag. He stuffed it into Little Fox's hands and smiled. I almost forgot that I haven't returned this fire-blocking basket to you yet. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo pinched Little Fox's nose gently and teased. Are you worried that you can't bear to let me take away your treasures? Of course not. Little Fox laughed through her tears and harumphed. Zimo, be careful. If you can't do it, don't force yourself. Ji Yaoshua reminded with a gentle expression. Yes. Su Zimo nodded and turned around. Waving his hand, he leaped into the Dragon Burial Valley. One had to be at the conjoint body realm to break through the spatial barrier to enter the Tao inheritance ground. Goddess True Jade's whereabouts were ethereal, and she had already left. In the north region, the only way to do that was to return to the Dragon Burial Valley. Su Zimo entered the old temple and headed straight to the backyard. Monk Yuan Bei was sitting there. The red-headed ghost was not far away as well. Beside the two of them, there was a gigantic black vortex. It was dark and deep within with a cold wind blowing. No one knew where it led to. It seemed like the two of them had been waiting for a long time. You've decided? Monk Yuan Bei asked. Yes, Su Zimo nodded. This is the best opportunity. Monk Yuan Bei pointed to the black vortex beside him and nodded with a smile. Go on. I hope that I can see Wu Dao descend before I pass away. Definitely. Su Zimo bade farewell to Monk Yuan Bei and the red-headed ghost and leaped into the black vortex. After a moment of dizziness, he descended into a space that was filled with a savage aura. Not far away, there was an area that was bitingly cold and had a bone-chilling wind. It was the Three Tribulations domain. Su Zimo took a deep breath and walked in. He had once passed the test of the Three Tribulations domain. Now that he was passing through again, he would not be rejected. In just a moment, he arrived at the center of the Three Tribulations domain stone statue cemetery. Chapter 1191. Looking at the 32 inheritance stone statues in the cemetery, Su Zimo smiled gently and murmured softly, I'm back again. As though they sensed something, the inheritance stone statues burst forth with beams of light that shot into the skies in a spectacular manner. Those who could leave behind their legacies in the cemetery were all top figures who dominated the ancient era. For example, although half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky of the Fiend Sex had already perished, he left behind the Tao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra as a backup plan, and nearly made use of Su Zimo's Tao Heart to reincarnate for a second lifetime. What sort of a method was that? Furthermore, there were inheritances from the immortal Buddhist and Fiend Sects in the cemetery. If he could cultivate and comprehend all 30-odd inheritances, his comprehension of the immortal Buddhist and Fiend sects would reach an unimaginable level. There was another important reason why Su Zimo was prepared to deduce Wu Dao in the cemetery. After taking a few steps, he stopped in front of an inheritance stone statue. The cultivator who left behind the inheritance stone statue was also a half-martial ancestor in the past, and his Dao title was instant. Time flowed faster within 5 feet of the half-martial ancestor instant stone statue. A day outside was equivalent to a year inside. Back then, he made use of the 15 years of cultivation here to break through to the void reversion realm and kill many titled immortals and Deen. Su Zimo knew very well that just accepting the 30-odd inheritances in the cemetery might take up to 1,000 years. Furthermore, he would have to exhaust all his mental energy to deduce Wu Dao. That would be an even longer period of time. Such a long period of time might not have much of an impact on him. However, for Tianhuang mainland, it might be a massive change. Not to mention 1,000 years, just in the 100 years since he started cultivating. How many major events had happened in the entire cultivation world? The blood-colored ghost face appeared. The appearance of the Protoss, Rakshasa and even the witch race. All the signs indicated that a storm was about to befall Tianhuang mainland, and the chaotic situation of the ancient era might reappear where everyone was in danger. At that time, not to mention the weak mortals, even the majority of cultivators might not be able to protect themselves. If he had really spent thousands of years outside, even if he had successfully deduced the martial Dao and returned, the world would have changed greatly. Things would have remained the same, but people would have changed. Therefore, Su Zimo planned to use the 5 feet area under his feet to deduce. In this place, even if 1,000 years had passed, only about 3 years had passed in Tianhuang mainland. This was equivalent to stealing the secrets of the heavens. Of course, with Su Zimo here, the passage of time would definitely leave traces on his body. In other words, if 3 years passed in Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo would have to spend 1,000 years here, and expend 1,000 years of his lifespan. If you want to steal the secrets of heaven, you have to pay the price. Let's begin. Su Zimo sat down cross-legged, staring directly at the stone statue of half-progenitor instant. 2 beams of divine light shot out from the eyes of the stone statue, and entered Su Zimo's eyes. A long dust-covered cultivation technique gradually flowed into his mind. Late at night, at the border between the North region and the Middle continent, ferocious beasts roamed and birds covered the skies. Countless ferocious beasts were fighting and letting out deafening roars. At this moment, 13 figures descended into this desolate forest. The cries in the forest gradually subsided. Not long after, there was complete silence. All the ferocious beasts on the ground seemed to be intimidated by a sinister aura, and did not dare to make a single sound. Any demon beast with some cultivation would have an extremely sharp sense for danger. They knew that an unimaginably terrifying existence had arrived in the forest. This was the fear and suppression from the depths of their bloodlines. Bright moonlight shone on the 13 figures, and they shone with a faint green light, resembling ghosts in the night. The 13 figures wore long green robes with wide hoods that covered their faces. Even if someone was here, they would not be able to see their appearances clearly. The leader was leaning on a white walking stick. It was dark under the hood and 2 faint green lights shone, resembling ghost fires burning in a cemetery that could shake one's soul. Elder Scorpion, we've already arrived in the North region. Should we head straight to the Dragonbone Valley? A figure asked softly. There's no hurry. The cultivator named Elder Scorpion spoke slowly with a hoarse voice. Since the young master died in the Dragonbone Valley, we'll definitely head there. The dragons have to give us an explanation for this matter. Pausing for a moment, Elder Scorpion said. Now let's head to another place first. Where? 10,000 Goose Swamp, Elder Scorpion said. The young master left with a remnant of the witch race who was from Goose sect. Now that the young master is dead, everyone from Goose sect will have to die with him. Although Elder Scorpion's tone was calm, his words were filled with killing intent. The 13 figures were from the witch race of the primordial 9 races. Just as the witch race was about to leave, a soft cry of cicadas sounded from the forest beneath their feet. Elder Scorpion frowned under his hood and suddenly asked, You guys must be bored because you've never left the ghost's cursed tomb before, right? Yes, the witch race behind him replied. Elder Scorpion said indifferently, The cicadas in the forest are disturbing me. Attack and kill all the living beings in the forest. All right. The witch race behind Elder Scorpion replied excitedly. An hour later, after the 13 witch race beings left, the desolate forest behind them was already filled with corpses and rivers of blood, with a torrential blood stench. Half a month later, 10,000 Goose Swamp. The 13 witch race beings had arrived. Everyone looked down at the charred ground beneath their feet and exclaimed softly. This was where Gu's sect was located, but now it was reduced to charred ruins, as though a fire had burned all living beings to ashes. How could this be? Someone destroyed Gu's sect before us. Elder Scorpion released his spirit consciousness and investigated for a long time. There were no signs of life within a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Elder Scorpion descended and passed through the charred ground, arriving at a dried-up pool underground. He sniffed slightly and narrowed his eyes. It's the aura of the divine spring. It's a pity that someone else obtained it first. A witch race being said softly. What exactly happened here? What does the fire here have to do with the young master? A few witch race beings asked with a frown. Let me take a look. Elder Scorpion extended a withered palm from his wide sleeves and conjured hand seals repeatedly. Eventually, he tapped his glabella gently and spat out a strange word. A strange energy fluctuation began to spread in the air. It was as though time was flowing in reverse before Elder Scorpion's eyes. The charred ruins vanished and countless buildings of Gu's sect were erected once more, revealing the 10,000 Gu swamp once more. This kind of method was truly shocking. He saw a huge fire. A green-robed cultivator conjured hand seals and released terrifying flames that burned 1,000 kilometers away, burning all the Gu worms in the 10,000 Gu swamp into ashes. He merely glanced at that cultivator hurriedly. This was because his attention had been completely attracted by another scene. He saw an extremely terrifying figure that could not possibly exist in this world. Chapter 1192. Psst. Elder Scorpion's heart skipped a beat, and he gasped. His palm trembled, and the dermic art that he had just conjured dissipated instantly. How was that possible? How could the bloodline of that race still exist in this world? Elder Scorpion's eyes were filled with bewilderment, and his aura was unstable. Elder, what happened? A witch sensed Elder Scorpion's abnormality and hurried forward to ask softly. Elder Scorpion closed his eyes and did not say anything, merely panting slowly to compose himself. Could he have seen wrongly? Elder Scorpion was still in disbelief as he recalled what he saw just now. The dermic art that he released just now was not complete and was close to a divine power. Even with his abilities, he could only rely on the remnant memory fragments of this place to recall what happened in the past. It was no longer possible for him to release that dermic art again, to catch a clear glimpse of that terrifying figure. He could only recall. There was no mistake. Even if he was in a daze and did not see the figure clearly, there was no mistake about the aura from the primordial era. Even through the long river of time, the aura emitted by that figure still made his heart palpitate. It was a feeling of trepidation. It was like a mouse meeting a cat. Even if he wanted to resist, he could not. What reassured him was that the figure had yet to truly grow. Elder Scorpion's expression darkened. He was still worried and released his spirit consciousness, searching the surroundings carefully. Even under the scorched earth and the cracks in the ruins, he did not miss anything. A long time later, Elder Scorpion shuddered and arrived beside a pile of rubble in a flash. Waving his sleeves, he sent the rubble above flying, creating a huge pit. Then he bent down and took off his hood, revealing a pair of dark green eyes. He stared at the big pit in front of him. There was nothing extra there, only a black scale lying there quietly. Even though it was buried by the ruins, the scale was still bright without any scratches. It was only when he saw the scale that Elder Scorpion was certain that the bloodline of that race still existed in this world. Furthermore, it was growing stealthily. This was a huge matter. The death of the young master caused a huge stir in the witch race. However, if news of this were to spread, the entire shaman tribe would probably explode. Elder Scorpion, what's wrong? A sorcerer stepped forward and asked curiously. Elder Scorpion's divine sense moved and instantly put away this scale. For the time being, he did not plan to tell the juniors of the sorcerer tribe behind him about this matter to avoid causing panic. I'm fine. Elder Scorpion replied casually without batting an eyelid. Where are we going next? The sorcerer asked again. Dragonbone Valley. Elder Scorpion originally planned to use the secret technique of the Magi to trace the aura left behind by the young master and see where the young master had gone. However, since this had happened, he could only change his plans at the last minute. He planned to rush directly to the Dragonbone Valley, resolve this matter as soon as possible, and return to the sect. Without hesitation, Elder Scorpion gave the order, and the Magi stood up and left. 3 days later in Dragonbone Valley, the true bodies of the dragons were cultivating in seclusion in their caves. The Yin Spirit section and Yang Spirit section of the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness originated from the Desolate Ocean Dragon King. Due to the fact that some of the dragon's words were obscure and difficult to understand. Prior to this, Su Zimo's cultivation speed was extremely slow, and he stumbled. However, after coming to the dragons, he learned the dragon's words and cultivated some of the basic aura cultivation techniques of the dragons. Many of the confusion in the Yin and Yang spirit sections were resolved. Cultivating 2 more cultivation techniques was already twice the result with half the effort. In the short 11 years in the Dragonbone Valley, Su Zimo's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and he was even at the perfected void reversion realm. This day, Su Zimo was woken up by a transmission. He had already instructed that if nothing major happened in the clan, no one was to disturb his seclusion. Now that someone was calling for him, something major must have happened in the dragons. Su Zimo pushed open the door and walked out. Long Shi was standing at the entrance with an anxious expression. When she saw Su Zimo coming out, she said hurriedly, "Bad news, someone from the witch race is here." The witch race. A cold glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. The reason why the witch race came to the dragons at this moment should be because of the young master of the witch race. Long Shi continued, "I heard that the mighty figure of the witch race in the lead has terrifying combat strength and has been famous for a long time. He's older than most of the elders in the clan. Many elders of the clan are receiving them in the Divine Dragon Hall and want you to go over as well." "Got it." Su Zimo nodded and was about to move. "Long Zhuyu." Long Shi hesitated for a moment before reminding, "Be careful when you reach the hall. Don't go against that mighty figure of the witch race." "Why?" Su Zimo raised his brow and asked instead. "As the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage, would the witch race dare to attack and kill me in the Dragonbone Valley?" Long Shi shook her head. "That won't happen. Don't worry. The dragons are protective, and the elders will definitely protect you." Pausing for a moment, Long Shi continued, "However, a young master of the witch race has died after all, and they have a noble status. This matter won't be easy to explain. You might have to suffer a little, but bear with it." Su Zimo nodded and did not say anything else, heading to the Divine Dragon Hall with Long Shi. Before long, he arrived at the entrance of the hall. Before he entered the hall, Su Zimo felt waves of pressure. On the main seat opposite the door sat 5 figures with powerful auras. They were elders from the 5 lineages of the dragons. The fact that the 5 elders were all here showed how much importance they attached to the witch race. Among them was Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragon lineage, who valued Su Zimo greatly. The other 4 elders looked familiar as well. The elder of the Horned Dragon lineage was Long Zhong. Prior to this, he had wanted to force Su Zimo to hand over the 2 secret skills, Baron and Reverse Scale. Unfortunately, he did not succeed. At that moment, Long Zhong's expression was dark as he glared coldly at Su Zimo and harumphed. On the right-hand side of the 5 elders, there was a figure sitting on the lower right. This person was very young and wore green-blue armor. His gaze was bright, and his back was straight as he sat there boldly. He had a powerful aura that was almost on par with the 5 elders. Young dragons like Long Shi could only stand in the Divine Dragon Hall. However, not only was this dragon seated, furthermore, his seat was only second to the 5 elders. That was because he was the number 1 of the Heavenly Dragon ranking, the only 5-clawed divine dragon among the dragons, Long Song. Opposite him, on the left of the 5 elders, sat an old man in green robes. The old man's hair was sparse, and he held a pure white walking stick in his left hand. His cheeks were skinny and his eyes were sunken in with a green glow. The most obvious characteristic of the witch race was their green eyes. The darker the green, the purer the bloodline of the witch race. Behind the old sorcerer stood 12 juniors of the sorcerer tribe. The atmosphere in the hall was grim. That was because apart from those people, there was another person lying in the middle of the hall. However, it was a dead person, the young master of the witch race. Chapter 1193. The moment Su Zimo appeared at the entrance of the hall, he attracted many gazes. The eyes of more than 10 witches were filled with hostility and killing intent. Su Zimo believed that if he wasn't in the Dragon Bone Valley, those witches might have charged forward and torn him into pieces. The old shaman turned his head around and looked over. Ripples suddenly appeared in his dark green eyes. The old witch narrowed his eyes and glared at Su Zimo's face. He seemed to have seen that appearance somewhere before. The old witch pondered for a moment, and a thought flashed through his mind. 10,000 Goose Swamp. It was the cultivator who released the flames. Back then, he used a secret skill to trace back and vaguely remembered that this was the appearance of the green-robed cultivator. Of course, he was not certain. After all, he had merely caught a fleeting glance, and his attention was attracted by another terrifying figure. Furthermore, he vaguely remembered that the cultivator was dressed in green robes and had black hair. However, the person before him wore blazing battle armor and had shoulder-length scarlet hair. Their auras seemed to be completely different as well. "Who are you?" the old witch asked slowly. "He's Long Zhu, the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage." Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragons stood up and nodded to Su Zimo, indicating for him to be at ease. He introduced, "This is Elder Scorpion of the witch race." "In that case, you were the one who killed our young master?" Elder Scorpion asked. "Yes." Su Zimo entered the hall fearlessly. "Why did you set fire to the 10,000 Goose Swamp?" Elder Scorpion glared at Su Zimo fixedly, and suddenly changed the topic. It was an extremely ingenious question. He did not ask if Su Zimo had been to the 10,000 Goose Swamp. Instead, he asked directly why Su Zimo set fire to the 10,000 Goose Swamp. This would give Su Zimo the illusion that he had known everything from the start. If Su Zimo had been to the 10,000 Goose Swamp and set fire to it, his expression would definitely reveal flaws, and his mind would waver. It was a pity that the one who went to 10,000 Goose Swamp was Qinglian's true body. The true bodies of the dragons did not know about that matter. Upon hearing Elder Scorpion's sudden question, Su Zimo was stunned and did not react in time. Elder Scorpion noticed the slight change in Su Zimo's expression, and could not help but mutter in his heart. "Could it be that I'm really overthinking it?" "Elder Scorpion, what are you talking about?" The 4th elder of the Candle Dragons asked with a frown. Elder Scorpion turned his head and looked at the elders of the 5 factions in the middle. He pointed at Su Zimo and asked, "Did he leave the Dragon Bone Valley a year ago?" "Absolutely not." The 4th elder of the Candle Dragons shook his head in denial. The other dragons also shook their heads. Even if Elder Long Zhong and Su Zimo had some animosity, he had to admit that Su Zimo had always been in the Dragon Bone Valley all these years. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult for dragons to leave the valley, and Su Zimo was not qualified. Elder Scorpion nodded and put the matter aside for the time being. There was no change in his expression on his face that was as dry as tree bark. Without any warning, Elder Scorpion turned around once more and looked over. There was a strange power in his eyes that seemed to penetrate Su Zimo's body and strike his Dao heart directly. Su Zimo was expressionless, but his heart skipped a beat. The witch race was known for their crafty techniques. This was the first time he had seen a method that could strike a cultivator's Dao heart with just a gaze. This was indeed a secret skill of the witch race. If a cultivator's Dao heart was flawed or not firm, there was a high chance that their foundation would waver under this gaze, and they might even suffer from qi deviation in their future cultivation. If there were any flaws in a cultivator's Dao heart, that gaze would be able to destroy the cultivator's psyche completely. This power was completely untraceable and impossible to guard against. Unfortunately, Although Su Zimo's body possessed the bloodline of dragons, his Tao heart was the same and unshakable. Even the three tribulations domain could not shake his Tao heart. When that strange power descended, it did not cause any ripples on Su Zimo's body before dissipating into thin air. Su Zimo's expression was calm as usual. A look of surprise appeared in the depths of Elder Scorpion's eyes before disappearing quickly. It seemed like nothing had happened throughout the entire process. However, some of the sharper people present knew very well that Su Zimo had just experienced an immense danger. If he did not deal with it properly, his Tao heart would be shaken, and it would be difficult for him to advance in his cultivation in the future. In serious cases, there was a high chance that his Tao heart would collapse on the spot. Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle wiped his sweat secretly and heaved a sigh of relief. This time round, Elder Scorpion merely looked over, and he could not stop it in time. Furthermore, that power was untraceable, and even if he wanted to stop it, he did not know how to do so. Thankfully, Su Zimo defended against it himself. Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle's expression darkened. Elder Scorpion, as a conjoint body expert, don't you think it's embarrassing for the witch race to attack a junior of us dragons? Hee. Elder Scorpion chuckled dryly. It's just a small test. If this junior can't defend against it, he can only blame himself for being too weak. You make it sound so easy. Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle sneered. If he can't defend against it, his cultivation might be crippled by you. Su Zimo's heart warmed. No matter what, Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle was truly looking out for him. Furthermore, he had killed the young master of the witch race. No matter the reason, he had caused a huge disaster. The fact that Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle was still so domineering, when someone from the witch race came to question him, was proof of how highly the Dragons of Candle valued him. Enough. Elder Long Zhong of the Dragons waved his hand. We called this lad here for serious matters. Don't harp on this matter. Furthermore, isn't he fine? The elders of the other three lineages nodded as well. Candle Dragon harumphed and did not say anything else. Elder Scorpion chuckled, but did not let it go. Instead, he glared at Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle and asked, So what if he's crippled? The young master of the witch race is already dead. Which one of you dragons will repay this blood debt? Regardless of which of the primordial 9 races it was, the death of a young master was definitely a huge matter. Even the death of an ordinary clansman of the primordial 9 races could cause a huge disaster. The might of the wrath of the primordial 9 races was clear at the thought of the catastrophe that befell the great Qian Empire 10,000 years ago. If this matter was not handled properly, there was a high chance that the dragons and the witch race would become enemies. Elder 4 of Candle Dragon said in a deep voice, There's more to this matter. Your young master of the witch race was the one who activated his essence spirit secret skill on Long Zhu first. The latter was forced to retaliate and accidentally killed him. It was definitely not intentional. Oh, Elder Scorpion said coolly. Definitely not intentional? You make it sound so easy. Are you dragons trying to say that my young master of the witch race deserved to die? There's no need to be angry, Elder Scorpion. The elder of the Black Dragon people said. Among the elders of the 5 lineages, the elders of the Black Dragon people were still the most respected. The elder of the Black Dragon people pondered for a moment. Elder 4 of Candle Dragon did not mean that. He merely said that this should be a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Elder Scorpion stood up slowly with a dark expression. The young master of the witch race came to visit you dragons as a guest, but was killed here by one of you dragons. Now you're telling me that this is a misunderstanding? The most laughable thing is that you dragons are saying that my young master of the witch race attacked this lad first. In that case, I'd like to ask why the young master came to this Dragon Bone Valley and even tried to kill a dragon? Chapter 1194. The elders of the Black Dragon people shook their heads. We don't know either. Although they knew about the conflict between the young master of the witch race and Su Zimo, they did not know why the young master would attack Su Zimo. Su Zimo was probably the only one who knew the reason. Long Song glanced sideways and looked at Su Zimo meaningfully. Back then, he had already noticed that something was amiss. It was not surprising that the elders of the witch race would think of this. Elder Scorpion said, "This is the Dragon Bone Valley. Even a fool knows the consequences of attacking a dragon. The young master must have gone mad and had a death wish. The dragons can't be thinking of using such a ridiculous excuse to brush us off, right?" Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons took a deep breath. Although it's ridiculous, many dragons were present at the time and saw it clearly. "Do you think I'll believe that?" Elder Scorpion sneered. "That's equivalent to you telling me that the young master of our race came to your Dragonbone Valley to commit suicide. We're all from the primordial 9 races, and all of you are reasonable people," Elder Scorpion said indifferently. "I'd like to ask all of you a question. Now that the young master of your dragons came to our race's ghost-cursed tomb and died for no reason, will you let the matter rest if we come up with such an explanation?" The elders of the 5 lineage dragons exchanged glances without saying anything. The elder of the black dragon people pondered for a moment before saying, "Elder Scorpion, now that things have come to this, there won't be any outcome even if we insist on our own words. What do you want? Tell us. Since the young master of our race is dead, we naturally want the murderer to pay with his life," Elder Scorpion said slowly. "That's impossible," Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons denied flatly. Elder Scorpion grinned and revealed a few lone yellow teeth. "We're already making concessions for the death of our young master by asking you dragons to pay with your lives. If young master dies outside, even billions of lives won't be enough." Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragons shook his head. "Don't even think about it. Long Zhu is the young master of our Illumination Dragon lineage. He will definitely not pay with his life for you." Throughout the entire process, Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines. As a descendant of the dragons, he had no chance to speak. Right from the beginning, Elder Zhu Dragon's 4th elder had been protecting him and was not disadvantaged against Elder Scorpion. "How interesting." Elder Scorpion glanced at Su Zimo and sniffed the air before saying with a faint smile, "If I'm not wrong, the dragon blood in this Long Zhu's body is not pure at all." The expressions of the 5 lineage dragons changed slightly. This was indeed the truth. As of now, Su Zimo was still unable to transform into a complete dragon form. Elder Scorpion said, "The dragons have already fallen to such an extent that they let a remnant beast with an impure bloodline ascend to the position of their young master." The moment he said that, the expressions of the 5 lineage dragons turned terrible. Elder Long Zhong of the Horned Dragons harumphed coldly. "That's a matter of the Illumination Dragon lineage. The other 4 dragons don't have such a situation. In that case, what's wrong with a remnant beast with an impure bloodline paying with his life for our young master?" Elder Scorpion said, "Why? Is there really no one else in your Illumination Dragon lineage that you fancy this remnant beast that much?" The elders of the Black Dragon people, Ing Dragons and Horned Dragons, did not say anything. Under normal circumstances, there was nothing wrong with using a remnant beast of a dragon to exchange for friendship with the witch race and resolve this conflict. In fact, it was definitely worth it. However, this remnant beast of the dragons was different. Firstly, he was the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. Secondly, he was the number 1 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. Most importantly, the Illumination Dragon lineage valued this lad greatly. Whether they compromised or not depended on the Illumination Dragon lineage. Therefore, the elders of the 3 lineages did not say anything. However, Elder Long Zhong of the Horned Dragons was tempted. "In my opinion, no." Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragons could already tell what Long Zhong was thinking and rejected him before he could finish. "We can discuss whatever compensation and conditions the witch race wants. However, he's the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. It's impossible for him to pay with his life." Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragons had a firm tone that brooked no argument. The situation was in a stalemate. Elder Scorpion's expression darkened completely as well. Long Song did not say anything the entire time. It was not that he was not qualified. He possessed the bloodline of a five-clawed divine dragon, and the fact that he could sit in this hall meant that his status was almost on par with the elders of the five lineages. The reason why he did not say anything was because he did not approve of Elder Scorpion's suggestion either. The life of the young master of the witch race was precious. However, his life as a dragon was not cheap either. It was impossible for him to pay with his life. Although he declared that he wanted to suppress Su Zimo, deep down, he thought highly of Su Zimo. In fact, he even wanted to defeat Su Zimo after he grew stronger. I'm Wuxia. However, I have a question that I can't figure out. Right then, a witch stood out from behind Elder Scorpion. The person named Wuxia had a feminine expression and cold gaze as he looked at Su Zimo and asked, "You're merely a bastard with an impure bloodline, and your cultivation realm is only at the void reversion realm, the same realm as our young master. I want to know how a bastard like you managed to kill our young master with a single move." Everyone from the witch race had long been informed of the situation. That was the reason why Wuxia said that. Elder Scorpion did not stop him, as though he was waiting for an answer as well. In his opinion, that was impossible as well. According to what he knew, the young master of the witch race had a protection talisman and other treasures on him. How could he be killed with a single move? Furthermore, both of them were at the void reversion realm. The reason why the young master of the witch race could become the young master was because he was invincible among his peers and possessed terrifying combat strength. How could he be killed so easily? What are you trying to say? Su Zimo asked with a calm expression. Wuxia shouted. What I want to say is that if you can't give me an answer, you dragons are trying to kill our young master on purpose. That was a huge crime. The witch race could start a war against the dragons because of this. You want an answer? It's simple. Su Zimo said indifferently. Your young master was weak and was killed by me in a single move. Bullsh *T. Wuxia pointed at Su Zimo and hollered. Bastard. There's no way you can hurt our young master. Su Zimo's expression turned cold. The fact that Elder Scorpion attacked without warning previously, and attacked his Dao heart, had already caused him to be filled with killing intent. Now that Wuxia had a death wish, and was calling him a bastard, Su Zimo's killing intent intensified. Ever since he established his Dao, not many people dared to speak to him in such a manner. Wuxia stood out and glared at Su Zimo, saying slowly, I'm also at the void reversion realm. Since you're so strong, why don't we fight to the death? Let's see what methods you have to kill our young master in a single move. Elder Scorpion remained silent, and did not express his stance. It was clear that he agreed to it. Chapter 1195. Elder Scorpion praised internally. Although Wuxia's challenge seemed rash, in reality, he could advance or retreat and kill two birds with one stone. Wuxia was one of the top paragons of the void reversion realm in the race. Otherwise, he would not have been qualified to follow Elder Scorpion around and travel. If both parties were to fight, it would be best if Wuxia could seize the opportunity to kill the Longzhu and take revenge for the young master. If the two of them were in a stalemate, he could stand out and criticize the dragons after a few rounds. If the Longzhu could not even suppress Wuxia after a few rounds, how could he have the ability to kill the young master of the witch race? The dragons schemed against the young master of the witch race, and even hid the truth intentionally. If those two matters were confirmed, it would be enough for the witch race to start a war. At that time, there was no way the dragons would start a war with the witch race, because of a remnant beast with an impure bloodline. There's no need for a life and death battle, right? Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle frowned slightly and said. Elder Scorpion asked with a fake smile. What are you worried about when it's a matter between the juniors? Feeling guilty? Haha. Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle roared in laughter, and cursed internally for being an idiot. He was indeed worried. However, he was not worried about Su Zimo. Instead, he was worried that Wuxia would be killed by Su Zimo in a single move. At that time, the situation would be even worse if another witch died in front of everyone in the hall. Since you dragons have no objections, there are some things that we have to make clear beforehand. Elder Scorpion said in a deep voice. Since it's a fight between the juniors as seniors, there's no need for us to interfere. What do you guys think? Of course. The elders of the Black Dragon people nodded. All right. Elder Scorpion glanced sideways. Wuxia, go on. Wuxia walked out slowly with an arrogant expression and shouted at Su Zimo. Bastard, why aren't you saying anything? Are you afraid? Don't be anxious. Su Zimo smiled and said. I'll send you on your way now to see your young master. Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo's blood chi burst forth, and his figure flashed. Instantly, he arrived in front of Wuxia with a torrential aura like the arrival of a killing god. Wuxia's face paled. He never imagined that Su Zimo would actually be so powerful. And his speed was so ferocious that everywhere his figure passed, even space trembled. It was too fast. How terrifying was Su Zimo's flesh and blood, now that he had cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and was fused with the dragon blood. He could cover dozens of feet in the blink of an eye, if he burst forth with his full strength. In this hall, the moment Wuxia let his guard down, Su Zimo had already closed in. Puff. One punch. Wuxia's head exploded on the spot, and his essence spirit was destroyed. Long Song's eyes twitched. Apart from the fourth elder of the Candle Dragons, the other dragons were also stunned. Elder Scorpion was about to return to his chair and watch the battle. However, he did not expect that before he could even sit down, the battle had already ended. Wuxia, who was still alive and kicking earlier on, had already turned into a headless corpse. Elder Scorpion had expected everything. He had even made preparations in advance. If Wuxia fell into a disadvantageous position, how he would intervene. However, he did not expect Wuxia to be killed in a single round. Or rather, this could only be considered as half a round. Right from the beginning, Wuxia did not retaliate at all. In reality, if he were to widen the distance and Wuxia was vigilant, it would be difficult to kill him in a single move unless Su Zimo used some killing moves. Wuxia possessed the bloodline of the witch race after all. As long as he attacked with his full strength and released many secret skills of the witch race, he could defend against one or two moves of Su Zimo. Unfortunately, he no longer had a chance. If he said that he would kill Wuxia in a single move, he would definitely not attack a second time. Elder Scorpion glared at Su Zimo with a frosty expression. Fourth elder of the Candle Dragons came to Su Zimo's side and protected the ladder behind him. Just now, I reminded you that it's best not to engage in a life and death battle. Elder Scorpion closed his eyes for a long time before heaving a sigh of relief. Aren't you dragons going to give me an explanation? What explanation do you want? Who can you blame if this person has a death wish? Fourth elder of the Candle Dragons sneered. Elder Scorpion shook his head. I don't care about the process. I only know that the young master of my race died in your Dragon Bone Valley for no reason. I'm here to seek an explanation. You dragons have killed another member of my race. Everyone, what do you think the witch race will do once this matter is spread? Elder Scorpion said sternly. Are you dragons going to war with the witch race just to protect a remnant beast with an impure bloodline? Apart from fourth elder of the Candle Dragons, the elders of the other four dragons fell silent. To begin with, Elder Longzhong of the dragons had a feud with Su Zimo. Let's not talk about that for now. The elders of the other three lineages did not have much feelings for Su Zimo either. At the very most, Su Zimo had only entered the Dragon Bone Valley for 11 years. To wage war with the witch race for a remnant beast that had just entered the Dragon Bone Valley for 11 years? That was way too ridiculous. The dragons were indeed protective of their own, but they would not be so unwise. Actually, this Longzhu's bloodline is impure, and he did not have the chance to enter the Dragon Bone Valley to begin with. Longzhong said, it's already a huge favor for him to cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley. Who knew that he would get into trouble again? There's really no need for us to become enemies with the witch race for a remnant beast. The elders of the Black Dragon people, Ing Dragons and Jue Dragons, were tempted as well. Bulsh ** T. Fourth elder of the Candle Dragons had a fiery temper and shouted, even if his bloodline is impure, he's still the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage. Nobody can make him pay with his life. Fourth elder of the Candle Dragons, can you bear the responsibility of implicating the entire Illumination Dragon lineage because of a remnant beast? Long Zhong hollered. I'll bear your mother's burden. Do you want to fight? Fourth elder of the Candle Dragons cursed. You. Long Zhong soared into the air with a murderous aura as well. Interesting, interesting. Elder Scorpion rubbed his palms and laughed. You dragons can even fight because of a remnant beast. That's truly a wonder of the primordial 9 races. Alright, the two of you be quiet. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of others. The elder of the Black Dragon people frowned. After a moment of silence, the elder of the Black Dragon people glanced sideways and asked, Long Song, what do you say? No. Long Song glanced at Su Zimo and said resolutely, he's not an ordinary remnant beast. He's the number 1 of the hidden dragon ranking. How can we pay with his life? We dragons cannot bow down. As a 5-clawed divine dragon, Long Song's words carried immense weight. Even though he was at odds with Su Zimo, he was clear about these matters. No matter what, you guys have to give the witch race an explanation, Elder Scorpion said. My young master and another clansman died in the hands of a remnant beast. Dragons, do you want me to return empty-handed? The elder of the Black Dragon people asked. What do you want? Elder Scorpion replied indifferently. Since that's the case, I'll take a step back first. Chop off that person's right arm, and I'll bring it back to the witch race as an explanation. Finally, the elders of the Black Dragon people heaved a sigh of relief. Both sides had taken a step back. Long Zhu only had to chop off an arm and avoid a war with the witch race. That was already the limit of what they could get, and everyone was happy. After all, the death of the young master of the witch race was no small matter. If the young master of the dragons had died in the hands of the witch race, the dragons would definitely not let the matter rest. This time round, even fourth elder of the Candle Dragons did not say anything. Chapter 1196. At this point, Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons could not persist any longer. Using an arm in exchange for the life of the young master of the witch race, and avoiding a war, was already the best solution. Child, I've let you suffer. Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and sighed helplessly. The elder of the Black Dragon people said, Long Zhu, sever your own arm and return to recuperate. Don't come out unless there's anything else. You want my arm? Su Zimo smiled and spat out slowly. No. The expressions of the elders of the Black Dragon people and the others changed. The current situation was already the best they could get for Long Zhu. If this lad was still unsatisfied, he would be ungrateful. Long Zhong sneered. This isn't up to you. Don't forget your identity. The elder of the Candle Dragons shook his head gently and said gently, Child, don't worry. Although your combat strength will be affected by your severed arm, you won't be in any danger of death in the Dragonbone Valley. As long as you continue cultivating and enter the conjoint body realm, you'll naturally be able to regrow your arm. I understand that. Su Zimo nodded and changed the topic. However, it's impossible for me to give you my arm. His right hand was the divine phoenix bone. How could he sever his own arm and give it to the witch race? Interesting, Elder Scorpion laughed. In my opinion, this lad's bloodline is impure and can be considered as a foreign race. He doesn't care about the safety of dragons at all. There's a high chance that he's trying to incite hatred between the two primordial races by doing this. Those words could be said to be heartrending. Apart from Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons, the other dragons' elders had strange expressions. Those who were not of the same race would definitely have ulterior motives. Even if they did not believe it now, the seed of suspicion would be planted right now. Furthermore, Su Zimo's unknown background was worthy of suspicion to begin with. The methods of the witch race were not limited to combat. Even their words were filled with sabers and swords. Long Zhong said in a cold voice. Previously, when you weren't willing to hand over the secret art, I had long noticed that something was wrong with you. Now, you actually dare to disobey the elder's orders. If you don't break your own arm, I will do it myself. Long Zhong strode forward and emitted the terrifying dragon might of the conjoint body realm, grabbing towards Su Zimo's right arm. Bang! A figure slanted in, and a fist collided with Long Zhong's palm. Long Zhong took 2 steps back. It was the 4th elder of the Zhu dragons who acted in time, blocking in front of Su Zimo. Zhu Laozi, what are you doing? You're actually protecting this kid. Long Zhong glared and rebuked angrily. The Black Dragon People's elder also frowned slightly and said, Zhu Laozi, you're too protective of him. The 4th elder of the Zhu dragons knew very well that he could no longer handle the current situation. After a long silence, he said, I'll have to report this matter to the Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragon lineage before making a decision. Is there a need to alarm the Great Elder over such a small matter? The Elder of the Ing Dragons shook his head in disappointment as well. The Grand Elders of the 5 lineages were the most senior existences among the dragons. They had noble statuses and would not appear easily. Long Zhu, don't make things difficult for the others. At that moment, Long Song stood out as well. Su Zimo smiled. Dragons, you can't lower your head. That's what you just said. How could you forget it in the blink of an eye? Long Song said in a deep voice. This isn't lowering my head. This is just taking a step back. Oh, Su Zimo asked instead. If you were in my shoes and I asked you to break your own arm, would you agree? Fufu. Long Song smiled. Long Zhu, you've disappointed me. You're quite talented and have great potential. However, you're not qualified to compete with me. Pausing for a moment, Long Song said proudly, I can answer you. I won't break my own arm or even a finger. Furthermore, there won't be any dragons who are qualified to make me break my arm. That's because I'm the young master of the dragons, the leader of the 5 lineages. I remember that you're not yet. Su Zimo smiled. Is there a difference? Long Song said indifferently. I'm the only 5-clawed divine dragon of the dragons. I'm number 1 on the heavenly dragon ranking. Once the ceremony is held, I'll be conferred as the young master. All that's missing is a ceremony. That was the truth. Almost every dragon, including the elders, had already tacitly acknowledged Long Song as the young master of the dragons. However, according to the rules, the conferment of the young master had to wait until the ceremony was held. There would be a battle within the clan before the young master of the dragons was decided. However, in this generation, no one could threaten Long Song's position. At the Dragon Clan's grand ceremony, there would not even be any Dragon Clan members who would fight with him. That would be asking for trouble. Therefore, Long Song was indeed only one ceremony away from being conferred as the young master. Su Zimo said, in other words, if I'm the young master of the dragons, you guys won't be qualified to make me break my own arm? Long Song laughed loudly and said, you want to challenge me? Very well. I admire your courage. Unfortunately, you're not qualified yet. Wait until you're at the Dharma characteristic realm before you consider vying for the position of the young master of the dragons. You're still far from it. According to the rules of the dragons, they could only fight against each other if they were of the same cultivation realm. Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion realm, while Long Song was at the Dharma characteristic realm. Dharma characteristic realm. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and said slowly, it's not like I don't have a chance. He had already cultivated to the perfected Void Reversion realm, and it was impossible for him to reach the Dharma characteristic realm within a short period of time if he cultivated normally. However, there was a high chance of success in the Dragon Bone Valley with the help of external forces. A look of determination flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he said in a deep voice, Elder 4, please bring me to the ancestral dragon divine pillar. I want to be baptized by it. Ah! A series of exclamations sounded from the dragons. How is that possible? Elder 4 of the dragons objected as well. The ancestral dragon divine pillar was a divine object passed down from the primordial era in the Dragon Bone Valley and contained a pure and terrifying power. Every single dragon had a chance to be baptized by the ancestral dragon divine pillar, and their bodies and bloodlines would increase exponentially. awakening their innate divine powers. However, there was a prerequisite. The dragons had to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm first. It was not that they could not accept it at the void reversion realm. It was that their bodies at the void reversion realm could not withstand the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The baptism was extremely terrifying, and even the bodies of dragons would explode instantly. Back then, Long Song only received the baptism after he advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. Most importantly, there was no need for dragons to take such a huge risk to receive the ancestral dragon's baptism in advance. However, the situation that Su Zimo was facing right now did not give him much time. If he wanted to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm as soon as possible, he had to take a risk. Furthermore, Su Zimo firmly believed that although other dragons could not do it, their bodies and bloodlines that cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness could withstand the ancestral dragon divine pillar. He had that thought for a long time. However, the development of the situation made him even more convinced of that thought. The reason why Su Zimo wanted to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm was not only to challenge Long Song and resolve the crisis before him. More importantly, he had a feeling that the Yang spirit section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was not the final section. Yu might have left something behind. If he wanted to know, he had to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm. Chapter 1197. Longzhu, are you sure? Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle had a grim expression as he whispered. Receiving the ancestral dragon's baptism is no small matter, and you can't joke about it. If you can't withstand it. Although Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle did not continue, his meaning was clear. Long Song frowned slightly as well and said in a deep voice, Longzhu, you had better calm down. If you take a step back now, you'll only be breaking an arm. However, if you can't withstand the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar, you'll lose your life. Although Long Song's words were unpleasant, they came with good intentions. However, Su Zimo had already made up his mind and shook his head. When he saw that, Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle no longer tried to persuade him. Interesting. Elder Scorpion did not continue pressing and smiled faintly. That's good. I'll be a witness as well and see how strong this generation's young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage is. Everyone, let's go. Elder 4 of the Dragons of Candle looked at the elders of the Black Dragon people and the others and said, a single elder of the Dragons of Candle was not enough to activate the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. There had to be at least 5 of them. Everyone headed towards the central region of the Dragon Bone Valley. Longzhu, you're being a little rash, Longxi was worried. The baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar isn't that easy to withstand. Some dragons fail after entering the Dharma characteristic realm. Now that things have come to this, we can only give it a try. Su Zimo had a relaxed expression and smiled indifferently. Before long, the news that Longzhu was about to receive the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar spread through the entire Dragon Bone Valley. What? Longzhu is going to receive the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar? Isn't he at the void reversion realm? Could he have already broken through? Impossible. Look, he's still the top of the hidden dragon ranking. Longzhu has gone mad. He's going to receive the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar at the void reversion realm. When this news spread, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, causing an uproar. Almost all the dragons who were not in seclusion were alarmed. They all moved and rushed toward the ancestral dragon divine pillar in the central area. Before long, more than 1,000 dragons had gathered around the ancestral dragon divine pillar. They were densely packed and their voices were heavy. The ancestral dragon divine pillar towered into the sky. It was grayish-white all over and emitted an ancient aura. It was situated at the center of the Dragon Bone Valley. It could be said that this valley, this habitat of dragons, was built around the ancestral dragon Protoss. This showed how important this divine pillar was to dragons. Legend had it that this stone pillar came from the immortal world and had existed since the primordial era. Inside the stone pillar, there was even an ancestral dragon spirit being nurtured. It was the lifelike five-clawed divine dragon, carved on the surface of the stone pillar. Of course, there were many legends about the ancestral dragon divine pillar. Around the ancestral dragon divine pillar was a wide pentagonal stone platform. At that moment, Su Zimo stood on the stone platform beneath the ancestral dragon divine pillar, with a calm expression and resolute gaze. At the 5 corners of the stone platform, the 4th elder of the candle dragons and the other dragons stood still. Longzhu, have you made up your mind? It's not too late to regret it now, 4th elder of the candle dragons said sternly. Once the baptism begins, even we won't be able to stop it. If you encounter any danger, no one will be able to save you. Thank you for your concern, elder. I've made up my mind. Su Zimo nodded. 4th elder of the candle dragons said in a deep voice, "Everyone, let's begin." The elders of the 5 lineages exchanged glances and conjured hand seals, spitting out obscure words that contained a strange power that shook the ancestral dragon divine pillar. That was the unique language of dragons. The 5 elders cut their fingertips at the same time and squeezed out a drop of blood that fused into their hand seals, forming streaks of blood light that entered the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The ancestral dragon divine pillar could only be activated by using the bloodline of dragons and a secret skill. This scene was not unfamiliar to the dragons present. They had stayed in the Dragonbone Valley for countless years and had witnessed the activation of the ancestral dragon divine pillar countless times. However, this was extremely novel in the eyes of the witch race. A witch asked softly, "Elder Scorpion, do you think that Longzhu can truly receive the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar successfully?" "Phew," Elder Scorpion sneered. "Impossible. Didn't you hear? Even that 5-clawed divine dragon only received the baptism after reaching the Dharma characteristic realm. That lad's bloodline is impure. Can he compare to the 5-clawed divine dragon?" Another witch explained. "What if Longzhu is the young master of the Illumination Dragon lineage after all?" The witch said. This time round, Elder Scorpion did not say anything. However, he sent a voice transmission secretly with his spirit consciousness. "Even if that lad survives by chance, I'll be able to cripple him without anyone knowing given my capabilities." With Elder Scorpion's words, many witches were no longer worried. "Activate." Right then, the elders of the 5 lineage dragons shouted at the same time. Boom! Suddenly, the ancestral dragon divine pillar shook with a loud bang. Right in front of everyone, a claw lit up beneath the abdomen of the divine dragon carved on the divine pillar, as though it was burning with flames. Immediately after, divine dragons that were burning with flames burst forth from the stone pillar one after another and filled the skies. At a glance, they were densely packed and emitted a terrifying dragon might. It was an extremely shocking scene. The dragons present were fine. Most of them had seen this before. However, the witches were pale. The scarlet divine dragons circled in midair for a moment before suddenly lowering their heads and charging towards Su Zimo, who was standing beneath the stone pillar. Those divine dragons were formed from the dragon chi of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The so-called baptism was the infusion of dragon chi into one's body. The dragon chi would temper and nourish the body and bloodline of dragons continuously, causing their combat strength to increase exponentially. Under normal circumstances, an illumination dragon would awaken the dragon chi of the illumination dragon lineage after receiving a baptism. A winged dragon would awaken the dragon chi of the winged dragon lineage after receiving a baptism. Of course, that was not absolute. If dragons were extremely talented and had a pure and powerful bloodline, the ancestral dragon divine pillar would naturally sense it and awaken even more dragon chi. For example, Long Tsang possessed the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, and the ancestral dragon divine pillar released as much dragon chi as 5 lineages. Although the scene before them was shocking, in reality, only a single dragon chi lineage was awakened. That was because only a single claw of the 5-clawed divine dragon carved on the stone pillar lit up. In an instant, Countless scarlet divine dragons swooped down and surged into Su Zimo's body from all directions. Suddenly, a scorching power exploded within his body. Su Zimo grunted and his body swayed. The power was way too domineering and pure. It was as though it wanted to burn every single inch of his flesh. Rumble! Boom! Su Zimo channeled his bloodline and surged like a tsunami in an attempt to contain the power. But soon, his entire body had turned into a huge flaming man. Streaks of scarlet flames burst out from his body. Cracks appeared on his skin under the baptism of the dragon chi. It was a shocking sight. Chapter 1198. 15 minutes passed. The scarlet flame divine dragons in the skies were still endless as they swooped down continuously. Su Zimo stood on the stone platform and endured the baptism of the illumination dragon chi. His body and bloodline were transforming at an accelerated pace. The baptism of the dragon chi and the burning of the flames will be an extremely terrifying torture. Some of the illumination dragons had been baptized by the ancestral dragon divine pillar before and could understand that feeling. Even now they still had lingering fears. By the looks of it, Long Zhu won't be able to hold out for long and will be burned to ashes. But then again, his body is truly strong to be able to hold out until now against the attacks of the scarlet flame divine dragon. Just as some of the dragons were discussing, the ancestral dragon divine pillar shook once more. Roar! Immediately after, a dragon roar sounded. Another claw of the five-clawed divine dragon on the stone pillar lit up. The dragons were shocked. That was a sign of awakening the dragon chi of a second lineage. True enough. After the dragon claw lit up, a green light burst forth from the stone pillar. The moment it left the stone pillar, green divine dragons were condensed and coiled in midair, resonating with the scarlet divine dragon. The green and scarlet divine dragons swooped down at the same time and collided with Su Zimo. Long Zhu's bloodline is actually so strong. Long Zhu might not even be able to hold out after awakening the dragon chi of a single lineage. With the descent of the dragon chi of two lineages, he's dead for sure. The dragons discussed fervently. When he saw that, the fourth elder of the illumination dragons had mixed feelings and a conflicted expression. In the entire Dragonbone Valley, there were less than 10 people who were qualified to awaken the dragon chi of two lineages. It was good to awaken the dragon chi of two lineages. However, that also meant that Su Zimo would have to endure the impact and baptism of twice the dragon chi. How could a void reversion body withstand that terrifying power? It wasn't easy for our illumination dragon lineage to produce a monster incarnate. Is he going to be destroyed just like that? The fourth elder of the illumination dragons gripped his fists tightly and was extremely nervous. On the stone platform, Su Zimo was still persevering. The baptism of two dragon chi lineages could not cause destructive damage to his body and bloodline. However, this pain was indeed torturous. There wasn't a single part of his body that didn't hurt. Not only did the dragon chi cleanse his flesh and blood, it also reached his bone marrow and seeped into his organs. His flesh and blood were incinerated, his bones shattered, and his internal organs melted. Then, under his powerful self-healing ability, he regained his vitality, and the cycle repeated itself. As time passed, the figure surrounded by the dragons on the stone platform still did not fall. Could it be that Long Zhu had passed this tribulation? The thought flashed through the minds of the crowd. Suddenly, boom! The ancestral dragon divine pillar shook again. Roar! Immediately after, the third dragon roar echoed throughout the entire Dragonbone Valley. The expressions of the dragons changed drastically. Under the attention of the crowd, a third dragon claw lit up on the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The dragon energy of the third vein had been awakened. This time, not only were the other dragons shocked, but even the elders of the 5 dragons present were shocked. One must know that in the entire Dragonbone Valley, there were no more than 10 dragons who had awakened the dragon chi of 2 lineages. However, there was not a single dragon who had awakened the dragon chi of 3 lineages. This meant that Long Zhu's bloodline talent was second only to the 5-clawed divine dragon that had awakened the dragon chi of 5 lineages. Streaks of white light tore through the air and condensed into divine dragons that descended from the skies and rushed into Su Zimo's body. The dragon chi of 3 lineages descended at the same time. Su Zimo's body swayed, and he trembled unsteadily. However, he grit his teeth and persevered, circulating his blood chi. The sound of tsunamis rumbled within his body as he absorbed the power of the dragon chi of the 3 lineages continuously to strengthen himself. He cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness all year round, and experienced the pain of the Yin wind scraping his bones, and the karmic fire burning his body in the Tao inheritance ground. Later on, he was nourished by the primordial divine spring. His body could be said to have been tempered thousands of times. How could it be defeated by the dragon chi of 3 lineages? In the depths of the illumination dragon lineage, in a cave deep in the forest, a white-haired old man with wrinkles on his face sat cross-legged with a scarlet walking stick beside him, resting with his eyes closed. The old man was the grand elder of the illumination dragons. Even when 2 dragon roars sounded from the ancestral dragon divine pillar, he was unmoved, as though he was petrified. However, when he heard the 3rd dragon roar, he opened his eyes and nodded, murmuring softly, "Dragon chi of 3 lineages. Not bad." On the other side, in the depths of a cave of the blue dragon lineage, there were endless treasures piled up. An old dragon with green scales and a beard was sprawled on top, snoring soundly. When he heard the 3rd dragon roar, the old dragon did not even open his eyes. He merely turned around and mumbled, "I wonder which brat is receiving the baptism. It's causing quite a commotion." Before long, a 4th dragon roar sounded from the direction of the ancestral dragon divine pillar. The old green-scaled dragon was motionless. After a brief pause, the old dragon suddenly turned around and transformed into his human form. Jumping up from the spot, his eyes were filled with disbelief, and he was no longer sleepy. He actually awakened the dragon chi of 4 lineages. The old dragon looked in the direction of the ancestral dragon divine pillar, as though his gaze could penetrate obstacles and descend there. "He's at the void reversion realm." The old dragon was even more shocked. At that moment, the vicinity of the ancestral dragon divine pillar was silent. Nobody spoke. The dragon stared fixedly at the figure on the stone platform, dumbfounded and shocked. Dragon chi of 4 lineages. 4 of the 5 claws on the ancestral dragon divine pillar had already lit up. The dragon chi of 4 lineages descended and surged against Su Zimo's body. The dragon chi of 4 lineages rampaged through his body with a terrifying destructive power. Su Zimo could no longer stand and knelt on the ground with a pale face with a lowered head. His body was expanding gradually. It was as though there was a terrifying power within his body that was about to burst through his skin. At that time, he would definitely die, and even his essence spirit would not be able to avoid it. When he saw that, Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons turned around suddenly and glared at Elder Scorpion of the witch race with hatred in his heart. If Su Zimo died here, Elder Scorpion would be the culprit. If not for Elder Scorpion's coercion, Su Zimo would not have accepted the baptism of the ancestral dragon divine pillar at the void reversion realm. Elder Scorpion had a smug expression and a smile on his lips as he waited quietly for the final outcome. On the stone platform, scarlet scales appeared on Su Zimo's body one after another. Under the impact of the dragon chi of 4 lineages, he was forced to transform into a dragon and circulate the power in his body to its limits. Slowly, right in front of everyone, Su Zimo stood up from the spot, and his aura rose continuously. His gaze was like a torch, and the scarlet scales on his body burned with flames that were almost transparent and shone with a crystalline luster. He made it through. Elder 4 of the Candle Dragons was delighted. Right then the 5th dragon roar sounded. Pust! The dragon sucked in a breath of cold air. On the ancestral dragon divine pillar, the 5 claws beneath the divine dragon's abdomen were already shining. The dragon chi of 5 lineages had descended. The smile on Elder Scorpion's face vanished as well. What did the descent of the dragon chi of 5 lineages mean? Could it be that another five-clawed divine dragon was born among the dragons? How is that possible? Long Zhong exclaimed. Initially, Long Song was sitting not far away with a calm expression. However, at that moment, he could not control his emotions and stood up with a bang. At that moment, he realized that he had an opponent. At the same time, the Dragon Bone Valley shook and the dragons were shocked. In the firmaments, many elders of the dragons appeared to witness this scene. Chapter 1199. Good. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons stood up and looked in the direction of the ancestral dragon divine pillar in the cave. His eyes shone brightly as he nodded repeatedly. Dragon Chi of 5 lineages, haha. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons could not help but laugh, and the wrinkles on his face were almost stacked together. Initially, he stood his ground and protected Su Zimo partly because of the red-headed ghost, and partly because he valued Su Zimo's potential. Everything that happened today proved that his judgment and choice were correct. Swash! The space in the cave distorted for a moment. A green-haired old man appeared. He had a burly figure and was hale and hearty. Without any pleasantries, he said directly, "Congratulations, Boss Illumination." Well said, well said. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons replied with a smile. The person who arrived was the Grand Elder of the Blue Dragon lineage. The Grand Elder of the 5 lineages was the oldest among the dragons and had the most esteemed status among the dragons. Given their statuses, although the two of them were shocked, they were able to maintain their composure and did not rush over to watch the show like the other elders of the dragons. Of course, the awakening of the Dragon Chi of 5 lineages was a rare event, and even they could not hold back their curiosity. The Grand Elders of the Ying, Zong and Horn Dragons lineages were all in seclusion, and the Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people could only run over to the Illumination Dragon's Grand Elder. The birth of 2 five-clawed divine dragons is something that has never happened even during the primordial era. The Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people had lived for countless years. However, he was still excited at the mention of this. Every race had their own destinies and blessings. Under normal circumstances, the birth of a five-clawed divine dragon among the dragons was already the accumulation of the fortune of the dragons, and it was difficult for a second five-clawed divine dragon to be born. But in this generation, there were 2 of them. I wonder what will happen when the 2 five-clawed divine dragons clash, and who will be stronger? The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons grinned. Hee, even I'm looking forward to it now. The Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people waved it off. Long Song has been at the Dharma characteristic realm for many years, and has already cultivated to the perfected realm. This Long Zhu is still too inexperienced. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons smiled without saying anything. The Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people's eyes frowned slightly and asked, "Why is that lad still in his half-dragon form?" Below the ancestral dragon divine pillar, the Dragon Chi of the 5 lineages formed thousands of divine dragons and attacked a tall figure. This figure was covered in crimson scales that burned with blazing flames. However, right from the beginning to the end, Dragon Lord, the Blue Dragon Grand Elder frowned and shook his head. His bloodline aura is impure, and he can't even conjure a complete dragon body. He's not a five-clawed divine dragon. Five-clawed divine dragons were the kings of dragons. Their bloodline was the purest and most condensed, even giving birth to the terrifying 5th claw. How could he not even have a complete dragon body? The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons gradually calmed down and realized that something was amiss. They seemed to have rejoiced too early. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons' gaze landed on Su Zimo's right hand and said, "His bloodline is impure, and he can't have a complete dragon body. I know the reason." "What?" the Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people asked. "This lad's right hand has the divine phoenix bone." The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons said, "With the divine phoenix bone in his body, his bloodline is naturally impure, and he can't have a complete dragon body." Upon hearing that explanation, the Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people was even more puzzled and asked, But if his bloodline is impure, how did he awaken the dragon chi of the 5 lineages in the ancestral dragon divine pillar? No matter how one looked at it, this situation seemed contradictory. Even with their knowledge, they could not figure out the logic behind it. Dragon blood, divine phoenix bone. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons murmured subconsciously. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. At the same time, the Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people shuddered, as though he had thought of something. Could it be? The 2 old men turned around slowly and exchanged glances. Their eyes widened, and they could see the shock in each other's eyes. The moment that thought flashed through their minds, their hair stood on end. That thought was way too crazy. Impossible. The Grand Elder of the Black Dragon people gulped and shook his head. That's impossible. The Grand Elder of the Illumination Dragons nodded as well. It's probably just our imagination. It's indeed impossible. At the same time, many dragons near the ancestral dragon divine pillar had also realized that Su Zimo did not have the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon in his body. Of course, they could not understand why the ancestral dragon divine pillar would awaken the dragon chi of the 5 lineages. They could only say that something might have happened to the ancestral dragon divine pillar that caused this to happen. Long Song heaved a sigh of relief and sat back down. In his opinion, without the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon, Su Zimo would not be a match for him, even if he advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. Elder 4 of the Illumination Dragons was a little disappointed. However, on second thought, Su Zimo was only at the void reversion realm. As long as he could survive the baptism of the dragon chi of the 5 lineages, the benefits he would obtain would be unimaginable. Some of the elders of the dragons in Midair shook their heads slightly as well. Elder Scorpion's tensed heart gradually relaxed, and his expression relaxed. If Su Zimo was truly a 5-clawed divine dragon, he would have to return empty-handed this time round. As time passed by, the power within Su Zimo's body rose continuously as he withstood the baptism of the dragon chi of the 5 lineages, and finally reached a critical point. There was a long silence. Heaven and earth seemed to have frozen. An unknown period of time passed. All of a sudden, Su Zimo shuddered, and there was a bang in his body, as though some barrier was shattered. His aura rose suddenly, and a powerful energy fluctuation burst forth from his surroundings. The void surged, and even ripples appeared. The true bodies of the dragons had advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. At the same time, Su Zimo had a strange feeling in his heart. His eyes began to emanate a unique power. It was the power of divine powers. Innate divine powers had been awakened. Innate divine powers were different from the divine powers comprehended in the cultivation world. The so-called innate divine powers were powers that demons or dragons could automatically comprehend after advancing to the Dharma characteristic realm. This was a talent that originated from their bloodline. Every race had different talents, and the innate divine powers they awaken were different as well. For example, the pangolin comprehended the mountain-splitting divine power. Some rat demons comprehended the earth-tunneling divine power. The innate divine powers awakened by the 5 lineages of dragons were different as well. Dragons had the dragon teeth as their innate divine power. Once awakened, the teeth in their mouths would become even sharper, and could even crush dermic weapons, dermic treasures, and tear everything apart. Dragons had the dragon scales as their innate divine power. Once awakened, their defense would increase exponentially. Black dragon people had the dragon claws as their innate divine power. The dragon claws were the most lethal and offensive abilities of dragons. Once awakened, they could penetrate everything. Dragons had the dragon horns as their innate divine power. Dragons had the dragon eyes as their innate divine power. After entering the Dharma characteristic realm and awakening their innate divine powers, the power of divine powers would appear and cleanse their bodies and bloodlines once more, causing their bodies to become even stronger and undergo a transformation. However, the strength of the 5-clawed divine dragon was not only reflected in its bloodline. In the future, the 5-clawed divine dragon would even have a chance to awaken all the innate divine powers of the 5 lineages and undergo 5 transformations. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.